Chapter 704 The Road of the Vanguard. Chapter 704 The Road of the Vanguard. Shuryen had a marvelous change in his head. Seeing the new subtle power Upanishad, Shuryen became more excited. Shuryen found that newly formed black hole was similar to his mysterious martial spirit, as it could devour energy, filter it, and provide him many benefits. This eccentric and evil ability could make him unlimitedly strong and increase his cultivation speed tremendously. Shuryen suddenly felt that the fundamental power Upanishad, as well as the core of the blood vein ring and the mark on his forehead, were a mystery. The Sea of Consciousness, the seals of Upanishad altar, and the Heaven altar had been benefited from the energy of the black hole, which helped them thrive and change. Shuryen had concentrated on the black hole to perceive the essence of the devouring original essence, to comprehend the evilest power in this entire universe. He could vaguely feel that it was the biggest opportunity that perhaps could change his entire life. On the meteorite, Bao Ao, Jieji, Kanti, Corpse Chief, and Zenith were waiting in silence. Those people were the peak existences in the Grace mainland. However, after they got to this foreign land, they found dangers hiding everywhere. Even if they didn't move, it would still cost their energy. They all had a feeling of having a big failure, as they thought that they had made a wrong move getting here this time. They shouldn't have been that reckless. How long it has been? Jiatji was bored as he thundered. Stupid Shuryen. Why did he need to be that stimulated? That Dark Clan's guy isn't a good guy. He wanted to aim at him. Harumph. Shuryen shouldn't brag about himself. That Dark Clan's guy is about to kill him. Bao Ao had a headache. It's been so long. If that guy were quick enough, he would have succeeded already. Anyway, I always feel that Shuryen must have some support if he's that confident. Perhaps he could win, who knows. Both of them understood that Shuryen and that Dark Clan's creature should have had a battle already. They both had heaven flames, the magical flames of the Grace mainland. Due to the special feature of those heaven flames, it was destiny for Shuryen and that Dark Clan's guy to combat to gain greater power. However, Shuryen was on the disadvantaged side. At least, from what they could observe, Shuryen wasn't as strong as the other. He would be knocked down soon. Bao Ao and Jieji could see that before the Dark Clan's creature had his body destroyed, he should have had a really high realm. Otherwise, with only the Een spirits and the wandering ghosts, he would never have such confidence. Kanti, Corpse Chief, and Zenith in the Een written charm scripture didn't make any strange moves, as if they had predicted Shuryen's pathetic results. In their thoughts, the one who could return from the energy storm must be the Een spirit. As he only had the soul form, he could be immune to most of the energy attacks in this space. Moreover, his realm was higher. In the energy storm, killing Shuryen was as easy as flipping his hand. They didn't say anything because they were afraid that Bao Ao and Jieji could get crazy and attack them. That was why they didn't want to provoke the others and cause a dispute at this moment. This group of people was waiting in silence for an obvious result with different thoughts. Time continued to fly. The energy they had was draining fast. After each second, their energy was drained a little bit. There was no sun, moon, or stars in this place, which made it hard to tell the time. They could only be waiting begrudgingly. Long afterward, a beam of light flashed in the icy cold darkness in front of them, which carried a faint streak of Een spirit's energy. Kanti cracked an eccentric smile as he said indifferently, "Een spirit's back. I hope he found something and could give us good news." Corpse Chief and Zenith felt comfortable as they had seen the result eventually. In their eyes, if Shuryen hadn't started it first, they wouldn't have come here. Such a big mistake. In this harsh situation, these people didn't have any good impression of Shuryen. They were so hostile that they wanted to see Shuryen die as soon as possible. Bao Ao and Jieji changed their countenance. They also sensed the Een spirit's energy from that beam of light. Gradually, that light became clearer. After a flash, they saw a muscular body. Kanti and Corpse Chief gawked, not believing in their own eyes, their faces astounded. Zenith in the Een written charm scripture was terrified, sending his cold voice. F***ck it. This is F*** King Bad. Bao Ao and Jieji were struck. They couldn't press down their cheerily crazy laughter. Even Bi Rou and Gu Desi of the demon clan had put on an arrogant visage as they suddenly felt a cheerful feeling. That person had a body, so he must be Serene. Not only that, he had the Yin spirit's aura on his body, he did it on purpose. Serene descended on the meteorite, standing next to Bao Ao and Jieji. He threw a glance at Kanta and Corpse Chief, then shifted his eyes to the Yin-written charm scripture. Suddenly, he said, "You guys seem to be quite surprised." Kanti and Corpse Chief grimaced. The Yin-written charm scripture shuddered as they heard Zenith's voice again. "Where's Yin's spirit?" Shrugging his shoulder, Serene put on a dull countenance, shaking his head. "Ghost knows. I didn't see him in the energy storm. Maybe the energy of outer space has crushed him into ashes? Haha, the energy storm has a special energy. Different kinds of energy often explode chaotically. Well, since he doesn't have a body, he could be harmed." Kanti, Corpse Chief, and Zenith kept silent. They understood that Serene was babbling to deceive them. He had the Yin spirit's aura on his body, so it was impossible that he hadn't met the other. What Serene meant was obviously the announcement of his triumph. He won. The Yin spirit's aura on his body was the explicit evidence. The fact that he could come back alive had proven it. He released the Yin spirit's aura just to make it clear to Kanti, Corpse Chief, and Zenith. They could see clearly that he had taken something from the other. "Kid, you're awesome." Jieji patted his shoulder excitedly, laughing out loud. "So excellent. Haha, with our demon clan having a genius like you, I can already see the prosperous future of our clan already." Serene smiled brightly, then nodded and replied seriously. "I think so." Well, he wasn't humble at all. Kanti, Corpse Chief, and Zenith were so indignant they wanted to vomit blood. They felt annoyed, as they knew they were tricked. However, at this moment, they didn't say anything bad or shout to ask for a battle with Serene. The fact that Serene could kill Yin's spirit and take his heaven flame was enough to prove the powers he had. They shouldn't underestimate him. Kanti, Corpse Chief, and Zenith weren't sure that they could defeat that mysterious creature of the Dark Clan in the energy storm, let alone kill him. Serene's had proven that his competence was no less than theirs. As Yin's spirit was gone, they only had 3 on their side, while the demon clan had Serene, Bao Ao, Jieji, and 2 warriors at the second sky of True God realm. This force was apparently enough to fight face to face with them. The situation was changing in silence, making the 3 anxious. They felt it was getting worse after every second. "How's the situation over there?" Kanti stayed quiet for a while and then asked Serene. "The energy storm's really strong and perilous. Once you get in there, it will bind and twist your body. I think you guys can cross it, but you have to consume more energy anyway." Serene smiled, but he didn't continue to tease them. "I think we have no choice. We have to get there. Waiting here isn't different from waiting for death." Pausing for a while, he looked at Bao Ao and Jieji. "Shall we go now?" Bao Ao and Jieji, of course, trusted him. They nodded immediately after he asked. "All right, then we go first." "About them, just let them choose," Serene smiled, jumping off the meteorite where he had just landed not long ago. Bao Ao, Jieji, Bi Rou, and Gu Desi didn't hesitate a bit, following him and heading towards the center of an energy storm. "What do you think?" Zenith asked Kanti and Corpse Chief. The other 2 hesitated for a while. They all knew that they had no solution as they gazed at the energy storm not far from them. "Be careful. We shouldn't provoke that kid. I can see he isn't afraid at all. When we get into the energy storm, don't quarrel with him. Don't give him an opportunity to ambush us." Zenith pondered for a while before giving a reluctant suggestion. Actually, he felt fear fill up his heart. He couldn't deny that he had underestimated Serene's competence. As he finally got it now, he had to adjust his direction one more time. Kanti and Corpse Chief weren't stupid, and they both agreed. The 3 of them then prepared for a while and followed Bao Ao's group, jumping into the icy cold darkness. When the 3 of them crossed the safe area to reach the energy storm, they could see Serene with so many light spots twirling around him. He was safe and hadn't slowed down his speed at all. Quite the contrary, Bao Ao, Jieji, Bi Rou and Gu Si, the four top experts of the demon clan, were struggling in the energy storm. At first glance, the other three felt their souls struck miserably, as they felt that they had made wrong assumptions about the young man. If he could be safe and sound in the space energy storm, how strong was his body's durability? What level had he reached? How come the Grace mainland had such a freak like him? It was obvious that he had just reached the first sky of true God realm. How could he refine a body that was immune to the energy of outer space, which equaled the toughness of the God body? The three of them were anxious all of a sudden, as they could see the way ahead was filled with dangers, especially as they were accompanied by a freak like Serene. Their original plan was over. They had to hasten to think about new solutions as fast as possible. Chapter 705, Mining Area in the Foreign Land. Chapter 705, Mining Area in the Foreign Land. This group of people slowly advanced in the energy storm. Different from Serene, who was moving at ease, Bi Rou, Jiaji, Kanti, and Corpse Chief were struggling in the center of the energy storm. They had to use more energy to deal with its tremendous attacks. Serene was calm, staying behind Bi Rou's team. He often checked out Candy, Corpse Chief, and Zenith in the written charm scripture. Under his scrutinizing gaze, Kanti and Zenith were a little bit tense. In the energy storm, they all needed to consume a huge amount of energy to protect their bodies. However, Serene wasn't affected at all. If they had to battle here, they would receive a significant loss. They were afraid that Serene had borne a grudge against them and could ambush them at any minute. They were uneasy the whole way, maintaining a safe distance from Serene. After a while, as they could see that Serene didn't care about them, they finally could relax their tense nerves. Inside the energy storm, everybody had to spend a significant amount of energy. Eventually, they had crossed the area, landing on another meteorite. This meteorite was almost identical to the one they had stayed earlier. It was cold and dark. They saw no living energy, and they had to consume their energy to resist this harsh ambience every second. After Serene studied his body, he frowned while sensing. Then he said, "Nothing's here. We should continue." Then, he took the lead and jumped into the cold darkness again. Bi Rou's team didn't say anything, following him into the dark. Kanti, Corpse Chief, and Zenith knew this trip wouldn't turn out into a good one. They would have no way back, so they could only move forward. They needed to see if they could find anything in the next meteorite. They followed Serene, consuming their energy to advance further in the dark. After crossing more than 10 meteorites, even their cultivation base at their high realm couldn't endure anymore. All of them had spent at least half of their energy. Bi Rou and Gu Si appeared unable to endure anymore, their faces paling. Although they didn't say anything, it looked like they couldn't endure for much longer. Bi Rou and Jiaji were grim. Looking at the endless meteorite sea in front of them, they only felt bitter. Kanti, Corpse Chief, and Zenith didn't say anything either, while they checked their bodies begrudgingly. At this moment, despair gradually expanded in their hearts, as they thought that they would never cross this meteorite sea to find a way out. Keep moving. Staying here also consumes our energy. Although we don't know what's waiting for us ahead, we have no choice. Serene mused for a while and then sighed, storming forward. They knew they had no other way around. They could only continue that way. They all jumped into the energy storm, heading towards the biggest meteorite they saw. Crossing the energy storm, as soon as Serene landed on the meteorite, his eyes brightened. He shouted, "I can sense someone had been here before." Bi Rou and Jiaji were behind him. They were struck on hearing his words. Not long after that, Bi Rou, Gu Si, Kanti, Zenith, and Corpse Chief appeared. They were stirred up, looking at the meteorite with a flame of hope in their hearts. The meteorite they were standing on was a little bit bigger than the immortal island in the endless sea. There were so many burrows digging into the core of the meteorite. Big rocks were scattered at the entrance of those big burrows. It was obvious that someone had exploited this area. Everybody got cheered up, releasing their soul consciousness towards those caves to see if they could find anything alive. However, they were disappointed on seeing no energy fluctuation of living things. Although someone was here before, they had left already. As Yan's team didn't know their exact location, it was harder to find a better solution. I'm going to the cave and check it out, Yan pondered, then decided to pioneer. He flew to a cave in front of them. He entered deeper into the meteorite, seeing so many complicated turns and channels. At the end of the road, he found many concave spots on the wall of the tunnel. It seemed someone had taken the crystals or something from those concave spots away. It should be some kind of mineral. He observed for a while and came up with that conclusion, then returned. He entered another cave and found the same traces of exhausted exploitation. Yan didn't linger there. He returned from the caves, standing next to Bi Rou as he said, "This meteorite should have some strange mineral." It was a mineral mine. However, they had exploited it all. That's why we found no one here. As Bi Rou heard his conclusion, he felt better. He smiled and consoled himself. If we find streaks of living things here, it means we're going in the right way. If they can visit here and leave safely, we can too. As long as we can find the traces of people operating in the area, we can confirm that this place isn't a dead place that has no hope. Everybody agreed with him. They felt better, as they felt like they could see hope here. Move. We need to continue. Perhaps we will find the mines that aren't emptied out yet. Perhaps we can find someone there, Yan suggested. Canty, Zenith, and Corpse Chief didn't reject his opinion. They nodded silently, honestly approving of his suggestion for the first time ever. Everybody continued to move forward. They then crossed other 7 meteorites, of which 3 had the traces of exploitation. Everybody was cheered up, even though their energy was about to drain completely. They continued moving forward. Later on, they reached a giant meteorite. As soon as they landed, everybody got happy. They immediately sensed the streak of living beings. They hurried to move to the area where they detected the living aura. Then, they saw many massive caves connected to the core of the meteorite. The living fluctuation they had sensed came out from those caves. They could detect the others, and the others seemed to find them too. Not long after that, an ear-splitting explosion arose. Beasts that looked like they were made of piles of rock appeared from the caves. This kind of a beast was around 10 meters long, with a lozenge shape and a sharp, pointy head. They also had terrifying knife-like teeth. They had never seen these kinds of beasts in the Grace mainland. A dim light flickered in the beast's eyes, while they diffusing a massive aura and glaring at Yan's group. A shout arose from the caves. Not long afterward, 7 people emerged from the cave. They were the members of the Dark Spirit Clan, Human Clan, and Ghost Mark Clan. Those people had an outstanding diamond-shaped mark on their forehead. They seemed to belong to the same force. The leader was a member of the Dark Spirit Clan, whose energy movement was formidable. The energy intensity of his body was much more intimidating than any experts Yan had met. That man wore a dark gold robe, hiding his hands in the loose sleeves. He was an old man with white hair draped over his shoulder. His cold eyes gazed at Yan's team right when they got out of the cave. Under his gaze, everybody was extremely uneasy, as if a giant, ferocious beast of the antiquity was looking at them. This feeling was so annoying. King God Realm. Bi Rou muttered, his face changing dramatically. Yan shuddered. Divine light sparkled in his eyes as he immediately gathered energy, quietly staying alarmed. Where are you from? The Dark Spirit Clan's leader coldly looked at the other and said in a low tone. However, he was imposing like a god watching his creatures, nonchalant but harsh. We are from the Grace mainland. We've just arrived at the meteorite sea. But now we're lost. Bi Rou took one step forward and replied to the old man carefully. Where's this place? I wonder if you could show us the way to survive here. The way to survive? That man chuckled. He contemplated for a while and then nodded, his eyes musing. There's a way to survive. However, you have to be obedient. Otherwise, it's your dead way. Understand? Yan's team discolored. They discreetly observed the other 6 people. They were all scared. The other 6 included members of the Dark Spirit Clan, Human Clan, and Ghost Mark Clan. They were the warriors at the peak of True God Realm, and all of them had a dangerous aura. Only the leader had the King God Realm. Anyway, that old man alone could kill all the members of Yan's team, let alone the other 6. In this battle, They had no hope to win. Master Anmu, that scripture isn't bad, haha. A young man of the Ghost Mark clan chuckled. Magical tattoo appeared on his face as he admired the written charm scripture. He muttered, Master, you've agreed to give me something. The Dark Spirit clan's leader was called Anmu. He just grinned, raising his hand and snatching at the void. A tremendous flow of energy that could make a mountain collapse gushed out furiously from his palm. The written charm scripture was grabbed, falling into Anmu's hand. Get out. Don't make me do that. Anmu held the written charm scripture, talking faintly as if he had no emotions. A thin, pale figure emerged from the written charm scripture. He was as feeble as a willow catkin in the wind. The old man shivered, his eyes frightened. That was Zenith's body, being exposed for the first time. It seemed he couldn't adapt to the outer world, as he was moving his limbs oddly. King God Realm, not bad. You're a hotshot. Unfortunately, your energy has been drained too much, and you haven't attained the god body yet. Not much of a threat. Anmu contemplated for a while as if he were considering whether to kill Zenith or not. Anyway, he didn't do anything. After Zenith got out of the scripture, he threw it to the young man of the Dark Spirit clan. Take it. This toy isn't good enough, but it's still good for you. The young man was cheered up on taking the scripture. He sensed it for a while and then joy filled his eyes. It has a low-level inheritance, which I've never seen before. Not bad indeed. Haha, I finally got something in this trip. Zenith turned ashen. His lips convulsed, but he didn't resist. He understood that once he resisted, he would be killed directly. Both the realm and powers of the others were stronger than his. Even if he could restore his power, he would have never had a chance to win, let alone his current status. He could only accept his fate. Chapter 706. Forced to exploit the ores. Chapter 706. Forced to exploit the ores. Shiyan's team grimaced, but they didn't dare to act rashly. They were discreetly careful, and their hearts seemed to be hung loose. They had to take notice of the 7 people in front of them. Even Jieji, who was always crazy and bold, was calm at this moment. He didn't dare to talk anything offensive. Everybody could see the gap between their powers. Only their King God Realm leader was enough to kill Shiyan's team. They had no way to resist in this case. Shiyan mused. He felt a big pressure as he suddenly recognized that it wasn't easy to live in the outer space. Moving back and forth in outer space without being affected by the energy storm proved that the others weren't weak at all. Zenith had the highest realm among them, but he didn't dare to resist when the others snatched his written charm scripture. Apparently, he understood their current situation well. While they kept silent, the 7 people on the other side were also quiet, as though they were considering what to do with them. Anmu, the leader, frowned. His gloomy eyes raked through Shiyan's team. After a long time, he said, Deka, give each of them a piece of low-quality divine crystal. Let them restore their state, then make them exploit the ores for us. The Dark Spirit clan's young man, who took the written charm scripture, grinned and answered, Master Anmu, don't worry. I'll keep an eye on them. Anmu nodded, talking to Bao Ao and Shiyan. Help us exploit this mine. I will consider giving you a way to survive. Yeah, we will see your performance. You guys should seize the chance to live for yourself. Then, Anmu turned around and walked to the cave. The 5 peculiar beasts roared and then followed him like sharp drills. Right after that, cracking and grinding noises came from the caves. It seemed they were breaking and grinding big stones. The 5 experts of the Dark Spirit clan, Human clan, and the Ghost Mark clan scanned Shiyan's team with a cold face. Then, they followed Anmu and got back deep inside the meteorite. The Dark Spirit clan's young man called Deka grinned after the others had left. 8 thumb-sized black crystals emerged from the ring on his finger. They looked like black glass, with enormous energy moving inside. From his hand, the 8 crystals flew out, falling towards each member of Shiyan's group respectively. Shiyan frowned, snatching the black crystal. He released his soul consciousness to sense for a while and got stunned immediately. A marvelous kind of energy was moving in the core of this thumb-sized crystal. This energy wasn't similar to the essence crystal in the Grace mainland, as it could be converted to any energy that was suitable for the users. This feature was strange indeed. He observed discreetly and found that Bao Ao, Jiaji, Corpse Chief, and Zenith were both happy and scared at the same time, their eyes complicated. They had crossed a long way, passing many meteorites. The energy in their bodies was about to drain, especially Bi Rou and Gu Deci. At this moment, they were like the dying oil lamp without any supply. As they were given a crystal containing such massive and marvelous energy, they were overjoyed. Besides feeling happy, they were also getting more anxious and afraid of this group of strangers. It was just a low-quality divine crystal that was as big as a thumb, but the energy it stored was so intimidating. This showed that not only the others were strong, but they were also filthy rich. It wasn't easy to shake them. You guys should use the divine crystals to restore your energy first. Then, you will follow me to take the ores. Don't resist or annoy us. Or else. Wahaha. Dekka's threat was obvious. Then, he squinted and sat down cross-legged, took out a fist-sized divine crystal, and started to absorb the energy from the stone. Shiryan, Bao Ao, and Jieji exchanged looks. As they found that they had no choice, they sat down and started to absorb the energy from their small crystals. It was just a thumb-sized divine crystal, but the energy it stored was massive. Shiryan slightly urged it, and a torrential flow of energy rolled towards him, flooding his essence chi ancient tree in his tummy. Shiryan's soul consciousness checked the tree and saw the branches, which had been withered, become jade white again, shining with abundant energy. After around 1 hour, Shiryan had restored all the energy he had consumed. His mind, soul, and chi peaked again. Among this group, Shiryan's realm was the lowest, so the energy he had in the essence chi ancient tree was the least. That's why he was the first one who finished recovering. Looking at the low-quality divine crystal with some remaining energy in his palm, Shiryan felt odd. He recognized that there were endless mysteries in outer space. Different from him, Bao Ao and Gu Deci couldn't recover that quickly. Especially Zenith of the Ghost Mark clan. To him, this low-quality thumb-sized divine crystal was just like a grain of salt in the sea. The energy of his divine crystal had turned into the mysterious Inchi in his body, but it could only make him feel better. He still needed a lot to condense the god body. This low-quality divine crystal was enough to restore the consumed energy of Gu Deci and Bi Rou. To Shiryan, a warrior at a lower realm, it was a little bit abundant, but to Bao Ao and Kanti, whose realms were higher, it wasn't enough, and it couldn't restore them to the peak. Shiryan quietly observed for a while. He understood what the others had planned. As Gu Deci, Bi Rou, and Shiryan were at lower realms than the third sky of True God Realm, even if they could restore their full energy, they couldn't cause any threat to Amu's team. But Bao Ao, Jiaji, Kanti, and Corpse Chief were at the peak of True God Realm. If they could recover fully, it would be a problem. Zenith used to have the cultivation base of King God Realm. If they let him recover to his peak, he would give a big headache to Anmu. That was why they had given them the low-quality divine crystals to hold Zenith and Bao Ao down. They didn't want to see this group restore to the peak, which would bring them unnecessary problems. Shiryan waited for a while. Gu Deci and Bi Rou had restored their energy, so their faces looked better. The crystals on their palms had no energy remaining. Not long after that, Bao Ao and the others had used up their divine crystals. They stood up, but they seemed not fully satisfied. Zenith was the last one who finished. His visage was still grim. He stood up, looking at the young man of his kind with a mournful face. "We are from the same Ghostmark clan. Why do you need to make it hard for me?" Dekka laughed evilly, his eyes musing. "At first glance, I knew you're from the low-level continent. You're so boring, talking about racism. We don't talk about races here. Every race is the same. We only consider the realm and powers. We don't care about races." Shiryan's eyes brightened. From Dekka, he knew the way he had done in the Grace mainland for every clan to live together in harmony was correct. "Don't try to befriend me. Don't babble either. Work more. You should seize the chance to survive for yourself." Dekka waved his hand, not giving Zenith time to talk more. He continued tenderly. Master Anmu isn't an easy person to talk with. He let you live, so don't mess things up. If you enrage him, mwahaha, I think, you will suffer something more grating than death. We, the Troop 17, are kind enough. If you meet the other troops, perhaps you will be killed shortly. Then, Dekka pointed at a cave under his feet and talked faintly. Come with me. I will teach you how. He took the lead and jumped into the cave. Yan's team exchanged looks. They shook their heads begrudgingly and followed the young man. Shortly, they arrived at the core of the meteorite. They saw one of the beasts of that bizarre kind, which was crushing the rigid stone crazily, digging deeper into the meteorite. That beast had a sharp, pointy head that seemed to be able to break everything, as it had an innate power to crush stones. The way the beast bumped into the stone wall was like someone hitting a block of tofu. It pierced through the wall easily. Yan's team became grim. When they had just arrived at the previous meteorite, they had tried to dig the stone there. They were surprised to see that Bao Ao and Jia Ji couldn't even break the stone that easily. It was only a beast, but it could swagger here and there. The force behind those beasts should be really tremendous. According to Dekka, the 7 of them were Troop 17. So, they had at least 17 troops that came here to exploit ores. Each troop had many members. If the leaders were all at Anmu's realm, everyone could imagine how intimidating a force that was. Everybody felt their hearts getting heavier. Those beasts continually broke the stone, digging deeper into the thick stone. It stopped from time to gather energy, then continued the work. This stone wall seemed to never end. It had many 5-colored spots on the wall, which looked really beautiful. Under the beast's crazy activity, those 5-colored spots cracked. Fingernail-sized pieces of this 5-colored material scattered everywhere. Look carefully. Use your energy to cover them. Don't let those small pieces be exposed for too long. Only using power could save them from disappearing. Dekka suddenly shouted. His 10 fingers folded and then unfolded. Wisps of light flew out, covering each 5-colored stone. Yan observed and found that those 5-colored stones would have light oozing like running sand from its surface. After those light spots fell on the ground, they disappeared instantly. It seemed like those small pieces couldn't be exposed for a long time. Otherwise, some special effects in the stones would be drained bit by bit. Follow me and use the energy to cover the 5-colored perish essence, then slowly put them into your storage ring, Dekka shouted, his eyes as swift as electricity. He turned, glaring at them coldly. If you can collect enough 5-colored perish essence, Master Anma can let you live. He perhaps will give you more divine crystals to recover. Otherwise, you know what would happen. As Kanti and Zenith heard him, they changed their countenance, quickly following his operation to collect the 5-colored stones first. Chapter 707. The 3 Major God Realms. Chapter 707. The 3 Major God Realms. Yan's team stayed inside the meteorite, exploiting ores and consuming energy every day. They didn't notice how much time had passed. Whenever the energy in their bodies was drained, Dekka would give them a piece of low-quality divine crystal so they could restore their powers. Then, they had to go back to work. Dekka only gave them the thumb-sized divine crystals. He had never given them anything bigger, which kept Bao Ao and the other High Realm warriors from restoring their full powers. Yan, Bi Rou, and Gu Disi had a relatively low realm, so they could use these low-quality divine crystals to restore their full energy. However, these 3 didn't dare to act rashly. Otherwise, they would have killed Dekka instantly. What if they could kill Dekka? Their troop still had Anmu, the King God Realm expert. Besides, they had another 5 experts at the peak of True God Realm. This meteorite sea was also the others' territory. If they dared to kill him, would they have a way to live any longer? Everybody understood and accepted their fate. They had to collect the 5-colored ores in the mine and hand them to receive the divine crystals. Dekka controlled all the harvest. During this period, they didn't see Anmu and the other 5. They didn't know how many days had passed by or whether it was night or day. Every day, they recovered their energy and then got back to collect the ores. Among them, Bao Ao, Kanti, and Zenith didn't gain any benefits from this day and night labor work. In fact, they even received a minor harm. Quite the contrary, Bi Rou and Gu Deci at the second sky of True God Realm could refill their consumed energy with only one piece of low-quality divine crystal. Gradually, their power seemed to increase. After each time of recovering their energy, they had a little bit of increase. During this strenuous labor, Bi Rou and Gu Deci were always calm and even secretly happy. There was another person that had such progress, Serene. He was at the first sky of True God Realm, the lowest realm here, and the time for which he had reached this realm wasn't too long. At this time, his realm wasn't stable yet. If he took risks to increase the realm, it would be hazardous. They had been working in the dark mine for a long time. His essence chi had been drained and then refilled for so many times. Serene didn't think about it much, since it helped him steady his realm. The altar in his head seemed to be trained too. It became more secure. The power in his body had gained something good during this running out and recovering process, as his power was increasing daily. Gradually, Serene found that he had secured his realm already. While his energy had been increasing every day, he found the altar in his head had marvelous changes accordingly. This kind of change was hard to describe. He vaguely thought that his realm was also enhanced, as if the subtle mysteries of the devouring original essence had benefited his altar. Every time he exploited the ores, he needed to gather his energy, using the power Upanishad to cover the 5 colored stones. This tedious labor work seemed like a new quenching activity to him. As he had just reached the True God Realm, he wasn't too familiar with using his power Upanishads. Usually, he needed a period of time to adapt to the new realm and become fluent in using his energy. This day and night of exploiting ores had given him a cool-down time. Every time he needed to condense energy, he used the power Upanishad he had comprehended. This process gave him a chance to review and strengthen his understanding of powers and the martial techniques. He understood that even though mining ores was a begrudgingly tedious task, and he was forced to do that, it was also a rare chance to steady his new realm, making him more fluent in using his power Upanishads. That was why he could stay calm the most in this group. After that, he didn't hate this mining work. Gradually, he had taken it as one of his leisure activities, turning it into a good foundation for his new breakthrough. The change in his mindset had given him greater benefits. With a positive mind, while he didn't notice, his realm and powers had increased strongly. Day by day, his visage got bright and glowing, totally different from Bao Ao and Zenith. He was enjoying this process. After an unknown period, Anmu brought the other 5 and appeared in this cave. Dekka laughed, handing a ring to Anmu. The old man checked it. He seemed to have a smile in his eyes as he nodded contentedly. Not bad. You guys work better than the others. Dekka squinted, his face happy. Can't let you take all the good things, said Anmu. These 8 should be separated. We need to push up the progress of the other areas. He looked at the other 5. You shall choose your men. Soon, those 5 people had picked one of Bao Ao's group. The warrior of the Dark Spirit clan chose Zenith, while the warrior of the Ghostmark clan picked Bao Ao and Bi Rou. An old human took Kanti and Corpse Chief. Another Dark Spirit clan's warrior picked Jie Ji and Gu Deci, and Serene was assigned to a beautiful human woman. That pretty woman had a messy, chestnut brown hair and a pair of bright eyes. She was wearing a tight, green-colored robe, which had many delicate patterns on the hem. This woman had a healthy wheat skin tone. Her body looked amazingly flexible. It seemed the woman wasn't satisfied with this arrangement. She stared at Serene for a while and then frowned. Why give me a first sky of True God Realm kid? How effective is he? This woman seemed to have a high position. Even Amma the leader had to be polite to her. Fergie, you will be more tired if you work more. You're almost done. If you slow down, I will have another arrangement. Of course, I won't let you suffer. Forget it. Fergie snorted and then waved her hand. She threw a glance at Serene, then talked to him faintly. This kid looks good, better than the others. I'll take him. Amma nodded, talking to them. All right, you guys follow them. After we're done, I will check your contributions and give you something. Follow me, the woman called. Fergie nodded to Serene with an indifferent countenance. She walked out of the cave first. As Shi knew he couldn't resist, he pondered and then said to Bao Ao and Jie, "Take care." "Take care," Bao Ao and Jie replied with a reluctant face. They were the heroes, the overlords of a vast area in the Grace mainland, where they could swagger without being afraid of anyone. However, after reaching outer space, they had fallen in such a situation. Of course, they couldn't feel comfortable. Shi didn't feel pleasant either. After bidding farewell to the other two, he followed the human woman named Fergie to another cave and continued his mining career. Fergie, his new boss, was more generous than Decca. Although she also gave him the bad quality divine crystals, she gave him 3 pieces each time. Then, she busied herself with exploiting ores and didn't care about him much. This woman was at the peak of true God realm. The energy moving inside her body was special. It could be as soft as cotton or as rigid as stone with just one flicker of her thought. And she had many rare techniques. While her energy was changing, it generated a strange magnetic field. Just like 2 poles, it had a powerful suction force. It was like a pure, subtle power of heaven and earth. She was collecting the 5-colored perish essence faster than Decca of the Ghostmark clan. While the energy of 2-pole magnetic field of her body was changing, it drew pieces of 5-colored stones into her ring. She alone was faster than the combination of Decca, Zenith, Bao Ao, and Jie. It was no wonder why she had progressed faster than them. Shi found that he could only help her a bit here, and his help was trivial to this woman. Every time the woman collected ores, all pieces of 5-colored perish essence would fly to her after the beast had broken the hard rock. Sometimes, 1 or 2 pieces got out of her magnetic field, which was Shi's chance to release his energy to cover them, putting them into his ring. He was just doing some odd jobs, which were much easier than when he was with Decca. He could be safe and free in this cave while working with that woman. No one had said a word. Today, it seemed the woman had consumed much of her energy. She suddenly stopped and took out a big divine crystal, stroking it with her jade-like hand to take the energy from the stone. She seemed bored to death too. Eventually, she remembered she still had a company here. The woman threw a glance to Shi and asked with a faint voice, "I heard that you guys came from a low-level continent, eh?" Shi was surprised. He contemplated for a while and then said, "I don't know what you mean by low-level continent. A continent that doesn't have warriors at Original God Realm is a low-level one. Do you have experts at Original God Realm in your continent?" The woman answered herself mockingly, "I think no. Otherwise, you must have known the classification of continents. Original God Realm?" Shi was stunned and then smiled miserably. "What realm is that? What is the strongest realm in your continent?" The woman seemed to get bored stiff, asking casually. "King God Realm," Shi answered honestly. "I knew it," Fergie nodded and answered slowly. "The Spirit Realm, True God Realm, and King God Realm are the 3 minor God Realms. After the King God Realm is the Original God Realm. Above that is the Ethereal God Realm, and finally, the Incipient God Realm. Each realm's also divided into 3 skies. The Original God Realm, Ethereal God Realm, and Incipient God Realm are the 3 major God Realms." Shi's eyes brightened as his heart was struck. It turned out that the God Realm was classified into 3 minor God Realms and 3 major God Realms. The Spirit Realm, True God Realm, and King God Realm were just 3 minor realms in the eyes of the outer spaces experts. The Original God Realm, Ethereal God Realm, and Incipient God Realm were the bigger realms to them. At this moment, Shi finally had a precise knowledge of the realms above the King God Realm. He knew the names of those new realms. Chapter 708, Separate. Chapter 708, Separate. Shi listened attentively to Fergie's explanation of the new realms. He frowned and thought, as excitement appeared obviously on his face. The God Realms had 3 minor realms and 3 major realms. As he was at the True God Realm, in the Grace mainland, he was already the best of the best experts. Listening to Fergie's explanation, he got to know about a whole new world, a world that was way beyond his imagination. Shi felt as if he was a frog sitting under his coconut shell. The foreign land's much complicated than what you've thought. Experts here like trees in a thick forest. Surviving in a high-level continent is much more strenuous than living in your low-level continent. Fergie seemed to turn her boasting channel on, but she wasn't hurried, looking at him with a cold face. If you want to survive in the foreign land, you always have to think about advancing. You can't be relaxed. Fergie paused for a while and then asked him, "How old are you?" Yan was bewildered for a while and then answered her honestly. "I think I'm around 30 years old." Even himself couldn't certify his age. He had been running back and forth through the Grace mainland, and he hadn't stopped for a long time in any land. He had been fighting continuously, trying his best to have a better realm. He did forget how fast time passed. Fergie's eyes became strange. She scrutinized him as her eyes shot out a flow of dim light. "Around 30? Are you sure?" Yan nodded. Fergie was startled. After a while, she furrowed her brows and then said, "Good innate endowment." She then contemplated for a while. Yan waited in silence unhurriedly. Fergie didn't continue. She seemed to muse on something. After a long time, energy waves rippled from her, and it seemed to get stronger from time to time. The big divine crystal in her hand wasn't shiny anymore, as the energy inside had been absorbed completely. Yan stood up, but she didn't dust her clothes. "Get back to work." Yan hurried to get up, gathering his energy and waiting attentively. That beast continued to dig the meteorite, scattering the 5-colored perish essence pieces. Fergie took most of them, and Yan just needed to collect the ones she missed. It was much easier than when he worked with Decca. It was another unfathomable period of exploitation. During this process, he had used the low-quality divine crystals to restore his energy. Yan could feel his essence chi ancient tree getting more vibrant, while his realm became steadier, and he could use his powers more fluently day by day. Today, while Fergie was using her strange power to collect the 5-colored perish essence, a diamond-shaped mark on her forehead glowed all of a sudden. Fergie's countenance changed a little bit, and her moving fingers trembled. Dozens of 5-colored perish essence pieces shot out, but she missed them. Yan always paid attention, and he didn't dare to relax just a second. He immediately urged his energy and covered all the 5-colored crystals, putting them into his storage ring. Fergie stopped, pointing at the beast. The beast stopped digging, standing still in the piles of rocks. Fergie looked grim. She squinted in front of Yan as if she was talking with someone using the mark on her head. Gradually, her face became more grimaced. A gleam of anxiety and worry appeared in her eyes. Yan didn't talk. He stopped his work, watching the woman as he knew something unexpected had happened. Another force has come to this meteorite. They are much stronger than us. Fergie stayed quiet for a while and then opened her eyes wider. The mark on her forehead didn't glow anymore, indicating that her conversation had ended. Anmu went to negotiate with him. If he fails, perhaps, we will have a fight. Yan was surprised. He felt anxious immediately. Stronger than you guys? Fergie beamed a forced smile. 2 King God Realm Warriors and 6 Peak of True God Realm Warriors. Seems like they're prepared to devour us. I hope he could negotiate with them. Otherwise, we will be in big trouble. Yan quieted down, discreetly putting up his guard, as he was calculating the worst situation. Should we get up there? If we stay underground, once they block us, we can't run away. As those people were standing on the meteorite, once the war started, it would happen above their heads. According to Fergie, they would be subdued for sure. If they stayed inside the meteorite, they would have no way to run. That was why Yan felt so anxious. Fergie shook her head. We can't get up there now. If negotiation doesn't work, we shouldn't show up. If we get up there, the danger will be bigger. We'd better run from here. She ordered the beast directly. That beast grunted, then started to dig towards another direction hurriedly. Just like a pangolin, it dug another cave deeper into the rock wall. The rock will be really tough if that section has perish essence crystals. Otherwise, it's soft enough to dig it fast. Fergie frowned while explaining. Anmu's a simple-minded person. His temper isn't good either. If he fails to negotiate and we have to fight, he will risk his life for sure. Anmu is at the King God realm. Even if we get defeated, he can protect himself and run away. And we will be. So, we should stay here and watch. Yan was surprised. It seemed Fergie wanted to disband. She didn't want to fight, and she wanted to run away to save her life before the fight happened. Under Yan's look, Fergie still acted naturally. I don't want to die. If you don't want to live, you can go there. She paused for a while and then continued. When the battle happens, you guys, the low strangers, will die first. Those who go with you will be killed shortly if they show themselves. If you get there, you will be killed like them. Amu won't care about your life of death. Yan discolored. He ceased his thoughts and quieted down. He wanted to get there and watch. However, Fergie's words had made him think about it again. The other team had 2 King God Realm warriors. So, it was no use if Yan got there. He would be killed shortly. Boom boom. Explosions reverberated rumblingly. Shortly, a tremendous tremor transmitted from above their heads. That tremor carried a furious energy shockwave and mysterious power intruding into the ground. Yan felt his hair rise, and he shivered under that strange energy effect. His flesh seemed to be bursting too. Amidst the rumbling noises, the mark on Fergie's forehead glowed again. It seemed Amu was talking to her. Fergie stopped the conversation. She shouted with a grim face. We should move now. Then, she didn't care if Yan had any other idea. She ran into the passage the beast had dug as fast as if she were flying. Yan was astounded for 3 seconds, then immediately followed Fergie by jumping into the passage. While running after her, he set up many barriers and restrictions in an attempt to hinder the opponents. Fergie's eyes were mocking. It's no use. At your realm, your barriers can't stand even one of their strikes. Yan didn't answer. He was still trying to set up more barriers. Crystals he brought from the Grace mainland flew out and were inlaid in the wall, creating faint energy defending barriers. The battle has begun. Amu can hold the others for a while. If we leave here, we won't get ambushed. Fergie didn't care about him, just talking. Of course, Amu will hate me. He will report me for sure when he gets back. Anyway, it's okay. Being reported is better than being dead. The beast in front of them was like a fast pangolin digging the rock. Yan followed close behind Fergie amidst the shower of rock chips. They didn't care about the battle above their heads, just advancing deeper into the ground. After a while, the beast roared and pushed further. It then jumped into the immense darkness. Yan and Fergie followed the beast, falling into the icy cold darkness. Fergie jumped on the beast and knitted her brows, turning and looking at him. Yan got her look, so he immediately flew over and landed on the beast, sitting behind her. Fergie patted the beast. It then sped up like a black thunderbolt, dashing towards a meteorite in front of them. Shortly, they fell into an energy storm. Fergie's body glowed gloriously in the furious gust of the energy storm. This halo came from her garments, creating a thick layer that covered her entirely. This protection kept her safe from the impact of the energy storms. As Yan was exposed, his massive blood Qian was triggered, which activated his petrification martial spirit. His body became rigid in just a blink. Each muscle of his became strangely firm with a mysterious energy that could neutralize the energy of the storm. Fergie could sense something. She turned her head, looking at him. Her eyes got brightened. As they were in the middle of an energy storm, she had to use her magical clothes to resist. But Yan, who was bearing his body, could withstand the storm easily. His intimidatingly tenacious body was much stronger than most of the true God Realm warrior she had met. She was astounded, looking at Yan. At this moment, he had gained a higher value in her eyes. In her eyes, this kid, who came from a low-level continent, had something strange. As he was too young to reach the true God realm, his innate endowment was excellent. And his tenacious body showed that he had been trained arduously for a significantly long time. Everybody knew that physical training was more strenuous than increasing the realm and power. Each warrior who had a significantly strong body all had a tough will, as they were the most persistent and terrifying persons. Fergie's eyes brightened. She considered for a while and then nodded discreetly as she had a good calculation. Chapter 709, The Sixth Herbal Star. Chapter 709, The Sixth Herbal Star. The beast moved forward in the dark space quickly, gliding over massive meteorites and heading towards the edge of the meteorite sea. Fergie didn't say anything, staying silent all the way. Sometimes, she took out the divine crystals to restore her energy. She wasn't worried about Anmu's team fighting with the others at all. Shi Yan was worried about Bao Ao and Jieji. He didn't know whether these two could survive this disaster or not. Before he left, he had thought about fighting alongside them. However, Fergie's words had awakened him, making him give up this thought. Even Amu and Fergie couldn't withstand the others. Shi Yan understood that even if he stayed, he couldn't help much. Perhaps he would have died instead. Although he had a good impression of Bao Ao and Jieji, it wasn't enough for him to risk his life. Shi Yan decided to save himself. If they could meet later, and if they needed his help, he wouldn't hesitate to give them a hand. At this moment, Shi Yan didn't have that ability. He couldn't save the other two. In this cold and dark space, Shi Yan didn't know how much time had passed. He only knew that they had crossed several hundred meteorites, advancing through a long distance. Eventually, the beast crossed the bizarre meteorite sea, entering an endless starry sky. This mysterious starry sky was stunning. Countless stars were twinkling charmingly. Flows of star energy crossed a far distance to gather on Shi Yan's body as his star martial spirit was refilled. This was the marvelous feature of his star martial spirit. Even if he didn't have any other energy sources to use, as long as there were stars in the sky, he could still use the star martial spirit to supplement the consumed energy. The beast continued to fly in this vast starry sky. Meteors shot, passing by the beast they were riding. Those meteors were illuminating gloriously, much better than the most beautiful firework that enthralled people's souls. In this endless starry sky, they could often be impacted by the perilous energy storms. Some were much dangerous than the meteorite sea. Shi Yan urged his soul consciousness to sense. His mind was struck, his face full of fear. The energy that rippled from those energy storms was earth-destroying. Shi Yan was sure that if he got rolled into such furious storms, his body would be ground and his soul altar would be shattered. Fortunately, Fergie seemed to be familiar with this starry area. On this journey, they had tried their best to avoid the tremendous energy storms. They had taken the long way around the storms and never dared to intrude. Shi Yan followed her and gained benefits from it. He relaxed as he wasn't torn apart to death by the heaven and earth energy like some rash intruder. The beast followed Fergie's order, changing its direction constantly. After spending a long time in the starry area, it flew directly toward a beautiful five-colored star. After getting through a thick layer of cotton clouds, they landed on that colorful star. Sitting neatly on the beast, Shi Yan gawked with bright eyes. 5-element power on the star was extremely dense. The energy it carried was too massive. It was more than 10 times thicker than the spiritual chi in the Grace mainland. This star had so many herbal fields divided into blocks. Those herbs planted there dizzied Shi Yan. He didn't know them, but he could see that each plant had an obvious energy rippling around it. In the center of the star, the herbal fields were situated in a piece of land in the middle of a sea. Shi Yan could see many people working in those colorful, thick fields. They were taking care of the plants, fertilizing them with strange substances to supplement the 5 elements' power of the soil. This land had a relatively large conical construction floating in the air, which was a kind of architecture he had never seen before. The beast headed towards that structure. 1 hour later, Fergie and her beast stopped in the highest area of that building. It was a triangular stone platform that was around 10 mu large, made of green stone with an exquisite, natural stone texture. After Fergie stopped there, she didn't explain anything, just faintly talking to Shi Yan. "Follow me." Shi Yan frowned, releasing his soul consciousness to survey the surroundings. He found more than 1,000 warriors at various levels staying around. Some of them were at the disaster realm or the sky realm. However, Shi Yan could spot some intimidating auras, which were even more tremendous than Fergie's energy fluctuations. "Where are we?" He walked behind Fergie, pretending to ask naturally. "There are so many herbal fields here." Also, the spiritual chi is so abundant. It's a wonderful place. This place is the herbal star of our force. It's the 6th herbal star, specialized in planting spiritual herbs and grass. Spiritual chi in this planet's abundant, which is the best for growing herbs. Fergie explained casually. The master of the 6th herbal star is my precursor, a level 2 divine grade alchemist. This place belongs to her. To our force, this 6th herbal star is very important. King God Realm warriors stay here year-round to guard and maintain the order in this place. Yan's eyes brightened. He was moved. Fergie's force should be tremendously strong as they possessed some herbal stars in the foreign land. A herbal star was a planet which was many times bigger than the Grace mainland, with more spiritual chi. Also, they had divine-grade alchemists. This was unimaginable in the Grace mainland. Pausing for a while, Yan felt something strange. Fergie's attitude was too friendly, which made him feel strange. Yan thought that this woman had some scheme against him. Why did you bring me here? Yan contemplated and then asked. You'll know later. Fergie put on an indifferent face. She didn't explain further and just kept walking. A warrior with the same diamond-shaped mark on the head appeared on their way as if he had received Fergie's message beforehand. His energy fluctuations weren't weaker than Anmu, a king god realm warrior. That man had flaming red hair and was wearing armor with flame drawings. He gave people a feeling of a brutal character. He threw a glance at Fergie and then nodded. I heard that you left alone, right? If Emma comes back alive and reports your runaway stuff, it will be big trouble, you know. It seemed Fergie and this man were on one side. Then trouble it is. At least I could survive. You know Amu's characteristics. If he isn't near death, he won't give up. I don't want to be buried with him. Fergie harumphed and then said with a serious countenance. Is Granny refining medicines? No. She's worried about you too. She was just now saying that you were a little bit late this time. That man knitted his brows, taking a quick look at Yan. Because of him? Fergie nodded. It's good that she isn't refining medicines. I brought this kid to help her little baby. That man laughed evilly, eyeing Yan as he grinned. If so, Granny will be happy. Your little trouble won't be a trouble anymore. Fergie also smiled. Yan's visage changed dramatically as he immediately got that Fergie had set him up for something, and it was definitely not a good thing. Kid, follow me. It's your good fortune that you can get to the 6th herbal star. It's not bad, haha. That man cracked a smile which nauseated people. Granny's little baby has killed 7 true God Realm slaves. If this kid has exuberant blood chi, perhaps he could endure longer. Haha. Fergie walked first. She didn't even take a glance over her shoulder. Yan darkened his face while his icy cold eyes were scanning her ample rear end. He didn't say anything, just following the woman. Soon, he saw Fergie talking in a low tone to an old woman who had a snake-headed cane. That hag had a wrinkled face outlining a pair of eyes like a venomous snake. Brutal gleams sparkled from her eyes as she was studying Yan, as if she were looking at a sacrificial sheep. Under her look, Yan felt irritated, his face getting more grimaced. This kid is only at the first sky of true God Realm. Does he really have abundant blood chi like you've said? That grandma's voice was hoarse and low. She spoke skeptically. Well, if it isn't, you're going to have big trouble. Granny, give it a shot. Fergie kneeled down and smiled. How could I dare to deceive you? The old woman nodded, raising her voice. Bring that kid to me. The king god realm that had accompanied them laughed and then disappeared shortly. Not long after that, he returned, bringing a middle-aged man who was stinky and bony. His eyes were dim and desperate, which made him look no different from a crying ghost. That middle-aged man couldn't stand firm. As soon as he saw the old woman and Fergie, he became hostile, pitching his voice and screaming. Fergie, even if I turn into a ghost, I won't forgive you. You be *TCH. You will never have a decent death. Fergie didn't change her visage or even arch her brows. The old woman appeared as if she hated that man a lot. She talked mournfully, you don't have a chance to become a ghost. The king god realm expert standing next to him grinned fiendishly. His 5 fingers were like 5 sharp knives that thrust into that man's head. Instantly, he squeezed the soul altar of the poor man. That man's god's soul was ripped off under a ruthless, twisting force, and his soul scattered. A small amount of remaining essence chi on his body turned into an invisible current, pouring into Shiryan's body. "My baby, I'll give you another place." The hag squinted, putting on a mild countenance, waving at the body of that middle-aged man. A beam of light shot out from there, winding around her wrinkled arm. It was a small snake that was around 1/2 meter long. 5-colored halo expanded from it beautifully. The little snake then flickered its tongue happily in the air, as if it was trying to get the favor from that hag. Shiryan paled. Chapter 710, Human Body Medicinal Cauldron. Chapter 710, Human Body Medicinal Cauldron. Fergie took out the ring on her finger, then smiled and handed it to the old woman. "Here are 5-colored perish essence crystals I've collected. It's good for your little baby, Granny. I hope your baby can evolve faster." The old woman squinted, her mood seeming not too bad as she nodded. "Good. Thank you." She took out all the 5-colored perish essence crystals and poured them into the eager, open mouth of the snake. As soon as the 5-colored perish essence crystals got into the snake belly, the moving halo on its body became dazzling. Apparently, it received a good deal of energy from the crystals. The old woman's smile became brighter. Her bright-lit eyes gazed at Shiryan for a while and then said, "Kid, behave. If my baby can ascend using your body, I will consider saving your life." Shiryan's visage was grim. He frowned, but didn't say a word. He understood that this hag and Fergie were full of lies, and that he couldn't believe their words. If his body could help the snake evolve, the other would absolutely not let him go. She would take his body as the long-term supply station for that little snake. However, he had no solution at this moment. There were many King God realm experts in this place. That hag was not only a rank 2 divine grade alchemist, but also a King God realm warrior. If he fought with them now, he would receive nothing good but a faster death. "Come, my little baby. I hope you like your new home." The old woman's eyes got colder all of a sudden. A sharp, gloomy look fell on Shiryan's body with an obvious threat. That small snake flew happily from her hand, shooting towards Shiryan's left palm. Its relatively long fangs bared as it bit open a small hole on his palm. The snake then shrank its body to intrude into Shiryan's body through the hole it created on his left hand. Right after the snake got into Shiryan's left arm, his face changed dramatically, as a tearing pain expanded from his arm to his entire body. A large amount of essence chi and blood chi in his body rolled massively and uncontrollably towards his left arm. The snake started to absorb his energy little by little, giving him a head-splitting pain. Shortly, his spirit, soul, and chi became vulnerable. This snake was a parasite living on the human body. It could devour the essence of the human body and make it stronger. This snake was extremely evil and ghoulish. A marvelous energy fluctuation was constantly moving on the snake's body, which was scarily sharp, as if it had the considerable lethality that could eat humans alive. Shiryan's body was really sturdy after so many years of being quenched. His bones and internal organs all had massive chi, while each of his muscles contained the mysterious energy. At the same time, his blood had miraculous effects, which could be compared to many outstanding medicines. After the small snake got into his body, it released a happy energy wave while making some hissing sounds. Its body slithered under the skin on Shiryan's arm, then reappeared through the hole, which tingled people's scalp. Granny's eye brightened on seeing the little snake happy. She continually nodded and said, "Not bad. Fergie, you got me good stuff this time. I'll help you solve your trouble. Your seniors will never punish you." Fergie put on a smiling face, bowing to the old woman. "Thank you, Granny. Yeah, for the time being, you should stay here. Once I'm done with your things, it's not too late to leave." The hag waved her hand to order the King God realm expert. "Hui Shuang, you take this kid to the potion chamber and give him rank 5 sacred grade pellets. No, give him rank 7 solid pellet. His corporeal body's tenacious enough to endure the medicinal power of these kinds of meds. The King God Realm expert called Hui Shuang cracked a grin, talking to Shi Yan. "Follow me." Shi Yan was begrudging. He knew that it wasn't the right time to rouse any dispute. Otherwise, his consequence would be pathetic. He didn't say anything, just threw Fergie a glare before leaving with Hui Shuang. Fergie was startled as a cold feeling crept over her body. She furrowed her eyebrows. After the men had left for a while, she spoke up. "Granny, this kid came from a low-level continent, but his innate endowment isn't bad. He has many mysteries too. You should be careful. Don't give him a chance to rebel." The hag beamed a chilly smile while nodding. "Little Fergie, don't worry. No one can dream to get out from my place alive. That kid's a brutal character, I can see that. Anyway, since his realm's too low, he can't struggle at all." Fergie seemed to ease her mind after listening to the old woman. She didn't talk further. Shi Yan's cold and sinister gaze that fell on her when he left still irritated her. It was like a wolf hiding in the dark, gazing at her in silence. Shaking her head, Fergie tried to sweep away the tangling thoughts. She stretched her body, revealing her charming bearing. "I have stayed in the meteorite sea for too long. I didn't even have time to bathe. Haha, Granny, I'm going to take a rest now. I won't bother you anymore. Okay, you should go. Don't worry. We won't let you suffer while staying here." The hag squinted, throwing her a bottle casually. "Take this. It's good for your realm. You deserve it." Fergie's eyes lit up, thanking the old woman continually. She squeezed her fist around the pellet bottle, leaving with a smile on her face. Hui Shuang took Shi Yan to a strange conical building. A crystal-clear pond stood in front of that building, where many fishes were swimming back and forth. A large amount of white mist hovered above the pond. It was the five-element steam, which diffused and flooded the herb field around the planet. The building behind the pond was made of dark brown rock. It had several stories. Barriers were arranged at each stair leading to the other floor. Hui Shuang arranged him to stay on the lowest floor. Shi Yan could see many square lots containing many bottles and jars, which had been labeled as the foundation pellets. Hui Shuang threw him a bottle malignantly and sneered, "This is rank 7 solid pellet. You have to take one after every 3 days. It will restore your blood qi. Otherwise, you will die soon." Shi Yan darkened his face. As he knew he had nothing to discuss with this man, he took the pellet and sat down, without saying anything. "You are not allowed to go further than 10 miles around here. Or else, I will capture you and give you some bitter flavor," Hui Shuang advised Shi Yan. "You're not allowed to touch anything here. Every day, you should urge the pellet's medicinal powers to supplement your blood qi. It will help you live a little longer." Afterward, Hui Shuang walked to the door. In just a flash, his figure faded like a mist. The place suddenly quieted down. No noise could be heard anymore besides the murmuring pond in front of the building with its thick steam. There was no shadow of humans on Shi Yan's floor, and he couldn't reach the upper floors because of the barriers and restrictions. Also, Shi Yan didn't dare to touch the pellets on the square boxes. He didn't know most of them, and he wasn't interested in them either. Shi Yan sat down in this room. He used his soul consciousness to check his situation. He could see clearly that the small snake was taking in his blood qi little by little from his left arm. After every 15 minutes, his blood qi was reduced. This hurt Shi Yan's heart a lot. His body convulsed from time to time as the pain flooded him. He had never thought about this situation. He didn't know Fergie's wicked intention, so she ended up setting him up in such dangerous circumstances. If he had known of her evil plan, he would have attacked her maliciously when they were still in the outer space. With his current realm, if he had ambushed her in the energy storm, he could have killed Fergie, escaping from her and entering a wider galaxy. However, it was too late. At this moment, he could only accept his destiny. When he could see his situation clearly, he would plan the next steps. Shi Yan tried to stop his essence qi and blood qi from flowing into his arm. However, when he did that, he found a fierce, surging soul fluctuation come from the snake, which gave his god soul an inexplicable pain from time to time, while his body suffered from a several times stronger pain. That soul fluctuation carried the small snake's aura and a flow of that hag's soul consciousness, giving him a clear warning message. He immediately stopped his probe as he knew that he would only bear a bad result when the other found his operation. If he couldn't prevent the loss of his blood qi, he could only think about how to enhance the blood qi and essence qi in his body. Or else, when the snake drained him, his tenacious body would be like a thin sheet of paper that would be ripped effortlessly. Shi Yan took out the so-called rank 7 sacred level solid pellet. He pondered for a while. Eventually, he beamed a forced smile and took out a longan-sized pellet. Taking in the pleasant smell of the pellet, Shi Yan didn't feel any joy but only bitterness. He knew that the other had made him a potion cauldron to provide his blood qi as the nutrient for that snake to evolve. She was using his exhausted blood qi and body to exchange for the flourishing, quick development of the snake. The rank 7 sacred level solid pellet was just another ingredient of this cauldron, which would keep him alive a little longer and give the snake more time to enjoy his energy. All of these were to urge the snake's ascension faster. And Shi Yan, he was just a pathetic supporting rock. Shaking his head, Shi Yan reluctantly swallowed the solid pellet. He then stood upright, using the essence qi to urge and take in the medicinal efficacy of the pellet. As soon as the pellet got into his body, an extremely extravagant medicinal efficacy started to slaughter his body like a furious flood, with the pellet as the eye of the storm. Numerous currents appeared like countless streams, connecting with his blood vessels. The furious medicinal efficacy attacked his body here and there, boiling in his vessels just like hundreds of wild horses escaping their leads, running madly inside his body. Shi Yan's vessels and tendons were swollen forcefully. Such kind of pain was indescribable, making his consciousness blurry. It was just a rank 7 scared grade pellet, but the power it brought was like an erupting flood, which could be compared to the power of a warrior at the 2nd or 3rd sky of true god realm. This medicinal power was wildly destroying his vessels and acupuncture points. Shi Yan thought that he could die from this intensive pain. Shi Yan paled. He finally knew why Hui Shuang had such a mocking smile when he heard the old woman call the name of the rank 7 sacred grade solid pellet. The medicinal power of this pellet was too harsh. It was much dangerous than the blend of Bao Ao and Jiajia's liquors. This furious power didn't give him time to counter. Shi Yan felt his entire body swollen. Green vessels bulged on his body like small tadpoles crawling under his skin, giving him an incomparable fearful look. Chapter 711, Quenching the Body to the Acme. Chapter 711, Quenching the Body to the Acme. The medicinal efficacy of the rank 7 sacred grade solid pellet was as furious as an erupting volcano in Shi Yan's body. Countless streams of the medicinal power were wreaking havoc inside Shi Yan. During this process, the torrentially powerful medicinal efficacy was running disorderly in Shi Yan's entire body, quickly refilling the consumed energy. Sweat soaked him like summer rain, while vessels bulged under his skin. He roared from time to time, as he was using a large amount of essence qi to neutralize the pain, keeping his mind sound. The power of the pellet was like wild horses escaping their leads, making his vessels and tendons enlarge, as if they were about to break at any second. Shi Yan clenched his teeth, groaning and roaring to resist the pain. After an unknown period, the power of the pellet started to cease. At this moment, half of his vessels and acupuncture points had been broken. Such a pain, that was beyond the range humans could endure, could put someone in a coma after a few seconds. However, Shi Yan was abnormal indeed. Before he had arrived in the Grace mainland, he had always sought for the utmost simulation and challenge. His patience to pain had surpassed normal people. After he had started his martial cultivation, this ability of his had been doubled the 2nd time. At the same time, Shi Yan's immortal martial spirit had given him a solid support, which also made him more persistent. Shi Yan didn't go unconscious. He still kept his calm and sound mind, scattering the medicinal efficacy into the flesh and blood of his whole body, giving his essence qi a big benefit. After a while, the rank 7 sacred grade solid pellet's medicinal efficacy was absorbed totally. His smashed tendons and vessels started to be healed quickly under the powerful self-restoring ability of the immortal martial spirit. After an hour, All of his broken tendons and vessels had been connected. His spirit, soul, and qi were all full. At the same time, his blood qi became more abundant. Taking a deep breath, Shi sat neatly with a dark face. He understood that if he were just a normal warrior, under the excessively brutal power of the solid pellet, even if he could survive, it would be like getting skinned alive. Half of his vessels and tendons would be broken, which was something ordinary warrior couldn't endure. He suddenly knew why the man that Hui Shuang had taken to them before couldn't even stand firmly. The other's realm was higher than Shi. He should be at the second sky of true God realm. However, even though he was a strong warrior under the mighty power of the solid pellet, his acupuncture points, vessels, tendons, and bones had cracked. Without the immortal martial spirit, his wounds would get worse gradually. That man had certainly been using the solid pellet. He had no choice. Without the solid pellet to restore his energy, he would die earlier. Although the solid pellet could supplement his blood qi and energy, his body couldn't endure such powerful medicinal efficacy. His vessels, tendons, and bones would be broken. This was a prolonged death. However, it was slower than the death of being drained by the snake. There were two options, and both of them were fatal ones. Without the solid pellet, the snake would exhaust him to death. Using the solid pellet without the powerful recovery power, it was a slow death when the vessels, tendons, and bones were all broken. Shi suddenly felt lucky that he had the immortal martial spirit. Under deadly circumstances where he must die, he could find the way to survive. The power of a solid pellet could refill his blood qi and make it abundant. At the same time, the blood qi absorbed by the snake wasn't as much as the amount the pellet had given him. Thus, the energy he took in was much more than the amount he had lost. He became the beneficial party now. A normal warrior at the true God realm without the immortal martial spirit could use a solid pellet after every 3 days. Moreover, they hardly restored their body's functions. It was like the power of the solid pellet was enough for the little snake to absorb for 3 days. After 3 days, the warrior had to supplement more using the pellet. Or else, the snake would take the energy from his own body. Shi knew that it took him only half a day to absorb an entire solid pellet. At the same time, he could recover his tendons, vessels, and bones. Shi grinned. He pondered for a while, then took out another solid pellet and swallowed it. Another inhuman pain flooded him once again. This solid pellet had a formidable medicinal efficacy, which was wildly destroying Shi's body. However, it also brought him a mighty blood qi. This excessive amount of blood qi dispersed in his tendons, vessels, bones, and inner organs. It was quenching his blood and flesh, making his body unbreakable. In this chamber, Shi was constantly using the solid pellets, pressing down his pain to supplement the lost amount of his blood qi and wet his body. The blood qi taken by the snake from him was far behind the amount he had been supplemented. Later on, he forgot the existence of the small snake in his arm, as he could feel that the power of the snake wasn't too mighty to hurt his foundation. Today, while Shi was converting the power of the solid pellet, he knitted his brows. A bottle of solid pellet had 16 pieces. As Shi was continually using the pellets, he had only 2 left. If he didn't have more solid pellets to use, as time went by, the snake would draw all the blood qi he had taken in. Frowning, Shi was squeezing his brain for a solution. He got it. He took in 2 pellets at the same time. He tried to press down the double pain to scatter the medicinal efficacy of the pellets. Right at the time the pellets were about to dissolve, Shi roared madly like an enraged dragon. His voice extended, reaching 1,000 miles away. Help! Anybody help! The medicinal power of the 2 pellets was wreaking havoc in his body. Strange noises arose from his vessels, tendons, and bones. Not long afterward, vessels and tendons of his entire body were broken. However, his bones weren't fractured, and he just had some cracks in the bones of his thighs and arms. This was the result of using the solid pellet to train his body throughout this period. After using more than 10 solid pellets, the strength and tenaciousness of his body had been upgraded the second time. Granny and Hui Shuang came as they heard his voice. They appeared by the pond with dark countenances. At first glance, They saw Shi struggling, balling his body in pain on the ground. These two exchanged looks, slamming their brows together. At this moment, the power of the two solid pellets in Shi body had almost dissolved completely, and his tendons and vessels were almost shattered. Blood covered his whole body. Under the red blood, green vessels bulged under his skin, which gave him a fearful look. "Brat, what the F***ck you are yelling for?" Hui Shuang harumphed, walking towards him. "You disturbed Granny while she was refining medicines. Do you want to die early?" Shi face distorted. His eyes swept through Hui Shuang, falling on the hag. He spoke up with pain. "I've used up the solid pellets. If you want the snake to continue its ascension, please give me another bottle." The old woman's pupils shrank all of a sudden as if she were witnessing something absolutely abnormal. Her figure flashed, and she reached Shi immediately. She extended her hand, touching Shi arm. Granny released a beam of her energy to survey the changes inside Shi body. She immediately found that his tendons and vessels were all fractured, which was the sign of the solid pellet's effect. As the alchemist who had refined this pellet, she surely knew the power of the rank 7 sacred grade solid pellet. She understood that an ordinary true god realm warrior couldn't resist the mighty power of her pellet. However, Shi had consumed the whole bottle of solid pellet in such a short period, and he hadn't died yet. This surprised her a lot. She closed her eyes, sending her soul consciousness into the small snake as if she were checking something. Her eyes brightened as though she saw something so joyful. She couldn't hold her cheery laughter, then nodded and took out 3 bottles of solid pellet. The old woman gently threw them to Shi. She smiled until her eyes squinted. "Take these 3 new bottles of solid pellets. They are all level rank 7 sacred grade solid pellets. Take your time and use them all." "Haha, not bad, kid. You have potential. I like it." Hui Shuang gawked, looking at Granny disbelievingly. He muttered, "Granny, can he endure it?" A warrior at the 3rd sky of True God realm could only resist the power of the 3 solid pellet bottles. Then he would burst to death. Can he survive? Granny screwed up her eyes. She looked thrilled, waving her hands, but she didn't explain further. "He can move. We shouldn't disturb him." Then she took Hui Shuang and left. The old woman and Hui Shuang left Shi place to go to a luxuriant green structure. She suddenly became serious, talking to the other. "There are 5 god-congealing pellets. That kid has such abundant blood chi." "What?" Hui Shuang was surprised, his face unbelieving. "It's just been a short period. How could it produce 5 god-congealing pellets?" I also found it unbelievable. The old woman smiled until she squinted. "This says that our kid has luxuriant blood chi in his body." "Yeah, Fergie has brought me a good kid this time. Not bad at all. It could produce 5 pellets in not more than 7 days. This progress is much faster than we've expected. This kid's a treasure. I have to protect him well to prevent him from dying early." Hui Shuang was also happy. 5 god-congealing pellets in 7 days. With this speed, we'll be rich soon. Our superiors will be happy too. Granny, you got a treasure this time. Congratulations. The old woman nodded with a cheerful face. I hope this kid could endure longer. Then we can fulfill the given task. Haha. I was worried that we couldn't catch up with the progress. I didn't expect that little Fergie could find me such a treasure. Not bad. I'll deal with her problem immediately. Granny and Hui Shuang were happy, and so was Shi. Looking at the 3 bottles of rank 7 sacred grade solid pellets, his face brightened. Since Hui Shuang and Granny had left early, they didn't know that Shi had a new change right after they were gone. Shi shattered tendons and vessels were healed and connected once again. The medicinal power from the pellets was absorbed completely. A dark gold halo was moving miraculously on his body. Squeezing 3 new bottles of solid pellet in his palms, Shi cracked a smile, muttering to himself. Perhaps I can break through to the 2nd sky of True God realm shortly. It seems I have to thank Fergie for giving me a fortune in miseries. Although he was showing his gratitude, his eyes were as cold as sharp blades, full of murderous intentions. Chapter 712, Miss Bi Rou. Chapter 712, Miss Bi Rou. Soon, Shi had consumed the 2 rank 7 solid pellets. The essence chi ancient tree in his body was luxuriant, while the energy in his flesh and blood had reached the threshold from where he could break through again. Shi had killed the expert of the Dark Clan in the energy storm. Then, he used his devouring power to absorb both the god soul and soul altar of the other, which granted his own altar benefits, along with new perceptions of his powers in the new realm. While staying in the meteorite sea, he had always been using his powers, which enhanced his understanding and usage of the powers of stars, space, and death and life to a new level. As his essence chi tree was full, and his realm had reached the threshold, Shi knew that he could break through shortly to the second sky of true God realm. Now, he had a bottle of the rank 7 solid pellets in his hands. All of a sudden, Shi thought that his life wasn't as tough as he had thought. The energy the snake had absorbed was just a little bit, compared to the amount he got supplemented. Thus, he didn't care about it anymore. Now, he needed to wait for the right time to use the energy of the essence chi ancient tree to wash his altar and sublimate his powers, entering the new realm. He had to wait until the experts in the 6th herbal star left for a while. At least, he had to make sure that the King God Realm warrior wasn't present on the planet to seize the chance and break through. Afterward, he could run away. During this period, Shi always paid attention to the changes of the herbal star. He had released his soul consciousness to sense everything. Shi found that the old woman and Hui Shuang didn't always stay in the herbal star. They would disappear for several days from time to time. They seemed to go somewhere to transport the materials or to submit the pellets to their superiors. Shi was waiting. He was waiting for a good opportunity. Time flew hurriedly. Shi had consumed another bottle of solid pellets. The abundant power of the medicine had been scattered and stashed in his body, making his body immensely powerful. Unfortunately, the medicinal power couldn't help him condense the immortal demon blood. Otherwise, he would have tried his best to convert all the power of the pellets to condense the immortal demon blood, which would help him move towards the direction Bao Ao and Jiaji had told him, replacing the blood of his entire body. According to those 2 demons, if he could replace his blood with the immortal demon blood, he could have a tremendous breakthrough, receiving the formidable fighting ability of the immortal demon from Antiquity era. At that time, his body would become invincible with bursting power. When Shi was about to finish the last bottle of solid pellet, he had taken in 3 pellets at the same time. When the tendons and vessels of his whole body shattered, Granny and Hui Shuang appeared. These 2 were frightened on seeing his performance, as he could consume 3 bottles of solid pellet in an amazingly short time. They all put on an astounded visage. Granny picked up the small snake and took out some green pellets from its mouth. After she was done with the snake, she put it back into Shi body. Giving him 3 more bottles of pellets, she left together with Hui Shuang with an odd countenance. Waiting until these 2 left, Shi sent his soul consciousness into the snake's body. He found an amazing thing. That snake held a whole different world in its tummy. Many exquisite spiritual formations were carved inside the abdomen of the little snake. Besides, there were so many piles of herbs, other foundation materials, and the 5-colored perish essence crystals. This little snake was like a cauldron. Those spiritual grass, herbs, and 5-colored perish essence crystals were the essential materials to refine some kind of pellets. The tremendous amount of blood chi the small snake had absorbed was poured into the center of the formation to provide the necessary energy to form the pellets in the center of the formation. Shi suddenly got it. That hag had let this little snake stay in his body to make use of the abundant blood chi and energy in his body to refine some special pellets. During this time, the formation inside the snake had condensed many pellets, which satisfied Granny a lot. That was why she didn't care about the anomaly on Shi body, but gave him more solid pellets. She thought it would make the small snake condense more pellets. Shi didn't know what kind of pellet the snake was making or what its effects were. He didn't care about it much anyway. Shi was waiting for a chance in pain. He had to wait until all the strong King God Realm warriors on the 6th Herbal Star went away to carry out his breakthrough, which would help him escape this place. As Fergie was still here, Shi felt happy discreetly, as he was considering making her regret for what she had done, once he reached the 2nd sky of True God Realm in the absence of the King God Realm expert. Today, as he finished absorbing the power of the last solid pellet, he wanted to take a rest. All of a sudden, he saw a bronze steamship descending from the sky. That steamship was around 300 meters long, with the same diamond mark on its massive body. Shi could see many people standing on the ship. The bronze steamship landed slowly. After it stood firm right next to the old woman and Hui Shuang, many people started to get off. They surrounded a white-haired old man, gathering with Granny's team. Shi didn't know what was happening. He felt tense since he had been waiting for a chance for so long. However, the King God Realm experts hadn't left yet, and he had found more experts coming. It made Shi upset. After the big bronze steamship landed, several hundred warriors of various realms followed a young girl and an old man, walking towards Granny and Hui Shuang. Fergie walked out of her room, standing respectfully together with the old woman and Hui Shuang to greet the people coming from the steamship. Not long afterward, a young lady and an old man reached Granny. That old man was also an alchemist at rank 3 divine grade, which was 1 grade higher than Granny. He was wearing gold clothes, which made his white head seem outstanding. His face was indifferent, as if he didn't care about anything else. Standing next to him was a young girl wearing a sky-blue gown. She was so pretty that every young man of this herbal planet seemed to be enchanted by her beauty. They were all gazing at her, revealing the appearance of the beloved brother Pigsy. The young girl seemed to not be an ordinary woman, as she was walking in front of the rank 3 divine grade alchemist. When Granny, Hui Shuang, and Fergie saw her, they took one step forward, greeting her with great respect. "Greetings, Miss Bi Rou." That young girl was calm, standing there charmingly. She nodded gently, talking faintly. "We just passed by this place, so we thought to pay you a visit. Nita, I heard that you guys are making quick progress." "Haha. I'm here to learn from your experience. It has just been 3 months. How could you produce 36 god-congealing pellets?" The white-headed old man cracked a buck-toothed smile. "Our team's slow. I'm afraid our superiors will punish us. I hope you could help us a little bit." That old man was also an alchemist of this force, and his position was as high as Granny's. He also had his own herbal star. His job was to refine pellets for the force and nurture new talents. "Well, I don't have any secret. It's the same. I use the medicinal animal to produce the pellets using blood chi of the warriors to enhance the progress of producing the god-congealing pellets." Nita squinted and continued, "Allard, your refining speed's always faster than the others. I think you appreciate me too much to come here and ask for experience." The old man called Allard beamed a forced smile, shaking his head. "I couldn't find a good cauldron recently. It slows me down. It would be alright if I didn't agree to refine the pellets for Miss Bi Rou. But I can't make it on time." As she heard him mention Miss Bi Rou, Nita's face became serious. She slightly bowed, talking to the young girl. "Miss Bi Rou, your father loves you that much. Why do you need to be hurried and use pellets?" The maiden nodded begrudgingly. "I'm about to break through the 2nd sky of King God Realm. When my brother got hurt, he had used all the pellets in our house. I'm in a hurry, which is why I came to visit Grandpa Allard. What are the pellets you need?" Nita pondered for a while and then probed carefully, "God-developing pellet." The maiden nodded, her eyes as bright and beautiful as stars in the sky. "If you can make me some, my father will repay you generously." Nita's eyes brightened. As she knew the other's father was a generous character, she contemplated for a while. It also requires the medicinal animal to produce them. And it needs abundant blood chi. However, the blood chi mustn't be too strong. Medicinal animals can't stand the blood chi of King God Realm experts. At the same time, the blood chi of True God Realm warriors isn't enough. Not long after the medicinal animal has started to absorb the energy, the cauldron will explode. It's really annoying. If it isn't annoying, why would we need to find you? Bi Rou smiled. It's because we know that your progress of refining God congealing pellets getting faster that we come to check it out. I wonder if you can help me out. My medicinal animal's now bearing the God congealing pellet spiritual formation. It takes time to change it. Nita frowned, as if she wanted to help her, but she found it a headache to do so. If it's only the matter of the medicinal animal, it isn't a problem. Bi Rou smiled shiningly as if she were the brightest star in the sky. That's why we have Grandpa Allard here, right? His medicinal animal has the God-developing pellet formation. It also contains the other required ingredients for the God-developing pellet. We just need the mighty blood chi. As long as we could get the suitable cauldron, it wouldn't be a matter. The old man bared his buck teeth, laughing evilly. Nita, if you have a good cauldron, we aren't afraid to cooperate with you. You know how generous Miss Bi Rou's father is. If you help her, her father will remember your favor. How does it sound? Fergie became excited even before Nita had had time to say anything. She cried in a low tone. Granny, the favor from Master Bai Tian is really big. Hui Shuang also put on an excited visage, his eyes as bright as torches, as if doing a favor to Bai Tian was something worth their lives. Bi Rou and Allard were all smiling, looking at Nita. They seemed to be sure that the old woman would agree with them, as their faith in the name of Bai Tian was strong enough. Indeed, Nita considered for a while and then agreed with gritted teeth. All right. I will offer my cauldron to fulfill this task. Can you take us to see the medicinal cauldron? The maiden asked as she couldn't make sure about it. Not a problem. Nita nodded then smiled. And it's because of our little Fergie. Haha, follow me. Then, they walked directly towards Shurian's place. Chapter 7:13, Shake and Roam. Chapter 7:13, Shake and Roam. Shurian stopped taking in the solid pellets, waiting silently with a solemn countenance. He could feel some strong warriors coming towards his place. As he didn't know what would happen to him, he had no choice but to prepare himself to counter his enemies. Shortly, Nita, Hui Shuang, and Fergie brought Allard and Bi Rou to his place. They descended by the pond, gazing at him with bizarre looks on their faces. Shurian suddenly felt like he was an animal in a zoo that the others were watching. He couldn't hold a snort in his mind. While the others were studying him, Shurian also scrutinized the newcomers, especially Allard and Bi Rou. Allard was also a divine-grade alchemist, whose rank was one level higher than that hag. He had an arrogance that originated from his bones and marrows. Shurian's look then fell on the young maiden called Bi Rou, his face solemn. Bi Rou was walking in the front of the others. Even the hag, the owner of this place, had to walk behind her. And the higher-ranked alchemist had to show respect when he looked at the young girl. From this minor detail, Shurian recognized that the young maiden should hold a high position. That young girl was charming and exquisite at the king god realm. She stood in front of him with a noble aura of the royals. Her star-like eyes scanned him, making him irritated. Bi Rou studied him for a while and then gently said, "Grandpa Allard, please check if he's suitable." The old man bared his teeth, squeezing a disgusting smile from his face. He stepped forward, grabbing Shurian's arm without asking for his consent. This old man's arm was like a heavy steel hook. While he was squeezing Shurian's arm, flows of energy expanded like gossamer, surveying here and there inside Shurian's body. The old man also sent his soul consciousness to the snake on Shurian's arm to sense the amount of blood chi the snake was taking in. After sensing for a while, Allard had his eyes brightened. He turned around, talking to Nita. "How long has he been here?" "I meant, how long has he been your medicinal cauldron?" "Half a year." Granny put on a bizarre look. She hesitated for a while and then explained. "He has used 6 bottles of rank 7 solid pellet." A gleam of astonishment sparkled in Allard's pupils. He pondered, then nodded and laughed, talking to Bi Rou. "Excellent." Bi Rou's eyes sparkled, revealing a contented smile. "Then, it's good." She paused, then shifted her look to Nita. "Give this man to me. I'll hand him back to you when I'm done with him. I have to go home now. By the time I get home, it's enough time to produce God-developing pellets adequately. You want to take him away?" Nita was a little bit unpleasant, her face distorted. Miss Bi Rou, it was not easy for me to have such an excellent medicinal cauldron. I still need him to produce god-congealing pellets. If I can't submit the god-congealing pellets on time, my superiors will punish me. It's not a big deal, Allard cracked a smile. I will give you 50 god-congealing pellets to take this cauldron. I won't let you fall in trouble. Bi Rou frowned, showing that she wasn't so pleased. Granny, you don't want to help me. Nita wore a bitter visage, shaking her head. Forget it. You guys can take him. Anyway, after you are done with him, you have to return him to me. He's such a good cauldron, a treasure to alchemists like us. I still want to use this kid to refine other kinds of pellets. Of course, Bi Rou smiled, talking neither slowly nor fast. Then we've settled this. He will leave with us. Yeah, after I have gotten enough god-developing pellets, I will send him back to you. Nita agreed. She grabbed something in the air, and the five-colored small snake flew out of Shiryan's arm, disappearing into her sleeve under a strange suction force. After Granny retrieved the small snake, she talked to Allard. This kid has a tremendous adaptive ability. He can endure the efficacy of the five-colored solid pellets. His blood chi's abundant. You don't need to worry about him. Allard laughed contentedly. Then it's good. So good. I've sensed a little bit. This cauldron's really good. Seems Miss Bi Rou's god-developing pellets would be produced faster. Shiryan's face darkened. He was so enraged he wanted to curse out loud. Miss Bi Rou, I also want to return to the continent. Can I take a ride, too? Fergie slightly bowed, her face longing. You can. And it's because of you that I could find such an excellent medicinal cauldron. Bi Rou agreed happily. Then, she turned to Allard. We should leave. Kid, we shall go. Allard bared his buck teeth again. Hui Shuang, take that kid to the ship, ordered Nita. Hui Shuang took action on her words immediately. Shiryan felt so bitter inside, regretting that he wasn't strong enough. Or else, he would have slaughtered all those young and old people. He understood that his time hadn't come yet. Those people were so strong. Even if he risked his life, his consequences wouldn't turn so nice. Shiryan could only be patient for now. Hui Shuang didn't need to force him, as Shiryan cooperated well. He followed behind Bi Rou, and the alchemist called Allard to the bronze steamship. Under Hui Shuang's dark look, Shiryan proactively got on board after Allard. As soon as he could steady his body on the ship, he shuddered, and his face changed. King God realm experts on this giant bronze steamship were too many, much more than those on the 6th Herbal star. Besides Allard and Bi Rou, there were 3 other King God realm experts, guarding the center and the 2 sides of the steamship. The unique aura of the King God realm warriors irritated Shiryan a lot. Grandpa Allard, arrange for him, will you? The young maiden advised, then stretched her body lazily. Her charming mouth parted. I'm tired. I'm going to take a rest. Wake me up when we reach the drifting gold sand area. She directly walked into the cabin. Her beautiful, straight legs took several steps, and then she disappeared completely. Shortly, her aura was wholly hidden, as if she had entered a secluding place to cultivate. You're Fergie, right? Allard threw a glance at the woman standing behind him, his face indifferent. You get to the lower cabin down there. We have many vacant rooms. Don't be too polite. Find yourself a nice place to rest. He arranged for Fergie, then shifted his look to Shiryan, smiling nauseatingly. You must have experience, so I won't explain much. Yeah, just do what you need to do for us, just like what you've done for Nita. If you're lucky enough, you can set yourself free later. You don't need to be a medicinal cauldron forever. Then, he shouted, Stinky worm, get your A*S here. A discontented grunt arose from the cabin. In the next moment, a black light flashed, and a 100-legged centipede with a gold back appeared. This centipede had a golden filament on its back, with 100 jade-like fulgent legs. Its body was almost transparent, that people could see the mysterious formation carved inside the insect's trunk. Allard pointed at Shiryan, then scolded and laughed. Move. I got a new host for you. He's a top-quality one. If you delay Miss Bi Rou's business, I'll use your body to cook soup. The 100-legged centipede hissed discontentedly, turning into a black light and entering Shiryan's left arm. It stayed where the five-colored snake used to stay and continued to use his blood qi to refine pellets. This centipede could absorb blood qi much faster than the small snake. As soon as it took shelter inside Shiyan's arm, the latter felt a head-splitting pain. Shiyan couldn't help but take a deep breath, his face grimaced. Allard observed Shiyan's change from his eyes. Seeing him taking a deep breath and then quiet down shortly without any intestine-ripping-off scream, Allard nodded quietly. Not bad, kid. You have the potential to be a good cauldron. Here, take 5 bottles of solid pellets to refill your energy. Yeah, whenever you're done with the pellets, just find me to take more. I'm sure I won't let you suffer from pellet shortage. He paused for a while and then waved his hand. You should get down there too, the bottom deck. Human cauldrons stay there. Without my permission, you are not allowed to wander. Shiyan was actually sending his greetings to 18 generations of that old man's family in his head. However, he proactively descended each deck of this big steamship. After 5 decks, he didn't find the staircase anymore, so he stopped there. This area had many small cabins. It seemed like all of them were occupied. Shiyan could smell the pungent, stinky odor rising from many cabins. People staying inside those cabins seemed to not have gone out for a long time or taken a shower. That was why they had such an unpleasant smell. Shiyan pinched his nose, trying to find a relatively clean cabin to stay. It had only one bed inside and nothing else. Trying to press down the desire to vent out his anger, Shiyan stayed idle in this cabin, trying to ignore the gross smell of this area. The first thing he wanted to do was to release his soul consciousness to survey this ship. At the 5th deck of the steamship, Shiyan's soul consciousness couldn't sense the operations of the upper decks. From the 4th deck upward, it seemed to have some kinds of barriers to prevent the energy of soul consciousness to probe around for sensing the activities and energy fluctuations of living things in those decks. There were more than 100 small cabins in this 5th deck, including 82 smaller rooms with living beings inside. Those energy fluctuations of those living beings changed from time to time. Sometimes it was strong, and at other times, it was quite weak. It should be because of the change in blood qi. This spoke up the fact that this deck imprisoned all medicinal cauldrons, and the change in blood qi happened due to using pellets. While he was sensing the area, he often heard the painful whines and groans. It was obvious that those cauldrons had the medicinal animals taking shelter. The pellets they were refining weren't high quality, since the realms of those warrior cauldrons weren't high. A rare number of them were at the true god realm, while the majority of them were at the spirit realm and sky realm. After a while, Shiyan found that someone's energy fluctuation had disappeared. It meant that person had just died. In the next moment, someone appeared on the staircase, coming to the room where that dead man dwelled. He threw the body out of the deck to prevent the pungent smell from polluting the air of the upper decks. Shiyan observed for a while. Then, he retrieved his soul consciousness as he decided not to wait furthermore. He must break through to the 2nd sky of true god realm as soon as possible. Shiyan didn't dare to waste more time. Chapter 7:14 Breaking Through in Adversity. Chapter 7:14 Breaking Through in Adversity. He didn't dare to break through when he was in the 6th Herbal star. It was because Shiyan didn't know how valuable he was to Nida. He was afraid that if he showed them his marvelous innate endowment, the others would be afraid of him, and then they would try to destroy him instead of giving him more time to grow. This wasn't something he wanted to see. However, after surveying this place for a while, he knew that his presence brought big benefits to Bi Rou. There were many King God Realm warriors on this steamship. Even if he showed his talents by breaking through to the 2nd sky of true God Realm, since the others needed him to produce the god-developing pellets, they would have to keep him. With this thought, he didn't need to ponder for more. Shiyan wanted to advance to the new realm immediately. It required expanding the Essence Qi Ancient Tree in order to break through to the 2nd sky of true God Realm from the 1st sky. Also, he needed to clean and wet his soul sacrificial altar to get a new good grasp of his power Upanishads. To Shiyan, it wasn't a big deal. After so many days taking in the solid pellets, Shiyan's Essence Qi Ancient Tree had been filled with abundant energy. And after he had absorbed the soul altar of that dark clan's expert using the devouring original essence Upanishad, the mysterious energy in his body was plentiful, which also enhanced his powers a little more. Then, he had spent a good deal of time exploiting the five-colored perish essence for days and nights inside the meteorites, which had improved his knowledge and usage of the three power Upanishads. Staying on the lowest deck of the steamship, Shi took a solid pellet and tried to disperse its energy in his body. This made his spirit, soul, and qi reach the peak again. After the immortal martial spirit had healed his broken tendons and vessels, Shi gained his consciousness and focused on expanding his essence qi ancient tree one more time. It wasn't a difficult task, especially to a person who had been through extreme pains like him. The pain he had to endure while enlarging his essence qi ancient tree wasn't as intense as he had thought. Many wisps of essence qi were moving disorderly in his stomach. His blood qi also scattered and gathered inside the essence qi tree, urging it to thrive. The ancient tree was made of essence qi. When pouring energy into it to make it expand, it always brought an extreme pain along with it. At the same time, pure energy from his stomach flowed into his sea of consciousness to wash his soul's sacrificial altar. Shi god's soul was calm and sound. He pulled himself together and concentrated on the tier of power Upanishads. 3 soul seals appeared clearly in his god's soul in this magical realm. However, as Shi was concentrating wholly to perceive the essence of his powers, he hadn't recognized it yet. Time flew by quietly. Gradually, energy fluctuations of power Upanishad appeared visibly from him. Starlight of the outer space that the naked eye couldn't see crept through the deck, falling on him. Mysteries of death and life flowed in his heart. Inside this deck, energy fluctuation of death and life arose, creating a gravitational field that covered all human cauldrons. Since those human cauldrons had low realms, they didn't have much knowledge of power Upanishads. In the coverage of the death and life intent domain, their lives were taken away unknowingly. Their vitality evaporated due to some mysterious power. Shi didn't know that his upgrading process had damaged the other human cauldrons in this deck badly. Still, Shi was sinking in his realm perception state. Slowly, fine wisps of space appeared in his cabin. The power of the chaotic space twirled fast and constantly, slashing down his small cabin. As his essence qi ancient tree was expanding, the change of his body became clearer. Shortly, his god's soul sublimated. The energy moving around him started to cease, and the gravitational field disappeared. His breaking through had caused death of half of the human cauldrons in this area. Soon, the experts on the upper decks got this information. Allard woke Bi Rou up to report the situation. What? Bi Rou looked sleepy-headed. She rubbed her eyes while trying to pull herself together. You said that he suddenly broke through the next realm. Allard was wearing an odd countenance. He nodded. It's unbelievable. As he's in the human cauldron state, his blood qi's constantly taken. However, he hasn't been exhausted, but broke through a new realm. This man is really inexplicable. Bi Rou's jade-like face was full of surprise. She contemplated for a while and then said, people who could break through in the human cauldron state are all dangerous characters. Does he actually come from a low-grade continent? Who knows? Allard shook his head. Fergie found him. Perhaps we should ask to make it clear. If that boy comes from a high-grade continent and Fergie captured him while he was traveling, later on when he escapes or his seniors find him, it would be big trouble. Get Fergie here, Bi Rou said resolutely. Allard nodded and left quickly. Not long after that, he brought Fergie, who was also surprised. I'm sure he comes from a low-level continent, because he didn't even know the 3 major realms of the God realm. Accompanying him were some experts at the true God realm. They were at the low realm as well. Fergie also recognized how serious it could be, so she hurried to ensure the others. I don't dare to deceive Miss Bi Rou. Don't worry, he won't cause trouble. Hearing her explanation, Bi Rou could ease her mind. She pondered for a while and then talked to Allard. You should keep an eye on him. Although he comes from a low-level continent, we can't underestimate him. You have to settle this matter. We will never let him leave alive. Or else, when he gets stronger, he will be a headache for us. Allard nodded heavily. I understood. All right, I'm going to rest more. Call me when we get to the drifting gold sand area. And focus on him. Bi Rou advised the old man, then left. Since his essence chi ancient tree had expanded, his power Upanishads were all cleaned, and his god's soul had sublimated, Shiryen advanced sufficiently, reaching the second sky of true god realm. At this moment, Shiryen felt exhausted. He found his essence chi ancient tree was drained again, but it also had grown a new large section, which required a tremendous amount of energy to fill it up. As he wanted to use the solid pellet, he felt something, frowning while looking ahead of him. A tender figure descended, looking at him with complicated eyes. It was Fergie. She steadied her body in Shiryen's cabin, frowning while gazing at him. After a while, she said, "Don't blame me. I was reluctant in doing that. I left Anmu on my own. If he reports me, my superiors won't spare me. Only handing you to Granny would give me a way out. Granny would help me beg for mercy so that I can continue to live." Shiryen kept his dark and sinister visage, but didn't say a word. "Your innate endowment isn't bad, with an enormous blood chi. You won't die after being the human medicinal cauldron," Fergie continued. "Surviving in outer space isn't easy at all. Just consider that I've given you a big hand. You know, warriors from low-grade continents would have a pathetic ending when they come here eventually. You're good here." Many people were killed right when they saw outer space. She understood that Shiryen had a lot of mysterious yet marvelous stuff on his body. As she couldn't calm her nerves, she came here to check. "Are you done?" Shiryen waited until she finished her monologue and then asked with mocking eyes. Fergie nodded. "Then get the F***ck off." Fergie's face changed in fright. She became colder, gazing at him maliciously. "You don't know how to consider the situation. I think you can't leave this place alive." Shiryen laughed faintly with his dark face, but he didn't reply. Fergie got embarrassed. She nodded and didn't talk more, leaving the place to her cabin in the upper deck to rest. Shiryen's eyes were cold and gloomy, gazing at her figure until she disappeared. Afterward, Shiryen pursed his lips, beaming a fiendish grin as he took out the solid pellet and swallowed it. It would help him refill the exhausted essence chi ancient tree and restore his power, bringing him back to his peak. He couldn't see the sun, moon, or stars from this place, so Shiryen didn't know how much time had passed. However, from time to time, he found that one of the human cauldrons died. Their bodies would be thrown directly to outer space, being torn apart by the furious energy storm there. Shiryen didn't know the destination of this giant bronze steamship. He wanted to know, but he couldn't ask anyone. Around him were so many human medicinal cauldrons, but they were all struggling to survive under the torture of the medicinal animals. Even though Shiryen had asked them many times, they had no extra strength to answer even a single question. Today, Shiryen had absorbed the medicinal efficacy of 3 pellets. After he had taken them in all, he felt quite full. He walked out of his small cabin, strolling back and forth in this lowest deck. Sometimes, he pushed open the door of a cabin to check. Each cabin held a warrior of different races. Shiryen found members of the Dark Spirit clan, the Ghost Mark clan, Human clan, and even the Dark clan. Most of them didn't have a high realm. They were all bony and looked more like the skeleton of a crying ghost covered by a skin coat. Those people didn't look like living beings anymore. This was caused by losing too much blood and flesh. Those people were dying slowly in their cabin. The medicinal animals would suck all of their blood chi, or the pellets would destroy their body's functions. When they saw Shiryen, there was no light of life in their eyes anymore. Despair and death covered them. They didn't answer Shiryen's questions or want to utter a word. As they knew they would never escape this place, their hearts had died even before their bodies. After entering more than 10 rooms, the same scene repeated in front of Shiryen's eyes. He felt his heart sink to the bottom. His face became more grimaced. The force that Fergie belonged to didn't have any humanity worth mentioning. To produce pellets, they could use living beings to be their cauldrons, using their blood and flesh to feed the medicinal animals. All were to make some pellets. The reality was always cruel. The strong could do anything they wanted, and no one could stop them. If one wanted to detach from their restraint, one had to be stronger than them. Only when one could scare the other, one could live better than them. Shi sauntered inside the deck, entering each cabin and asking people staying inside. If the other didn't answer, he would leave to another cabin. Soon, Shi reached the last cabin. Suddenly, he let out a surprised scream, as if he had found something strange. Chapter 7:15, Raging Flames Star Area. Chapter 7:15, Raging Flames Star Area. This cabin wasn't similar to the other rooms, as Shi couldn't push it open, with its door having a barrier. Also, this dark green door was somehow specially customized with a faint halo glowing and moving on it. The power of the barrier on this door had prevented Shi soul consciousness from sensing the interiors. In other words, Shi had missed this cabin all this while. Shi immediately confirmed that the one inside this cabin was a special human cauldron. He couldn't press down his curiosity, studying the barrier on the door. Shi sent his soul consciousness to observe the structure of the barrier. Making barrier was a method of using energy to build formations. Different energy intensity levels would create different functions of a barrier. Some barriers were best at defending, while other barriers could counterattack fiercely. Shi studied the barrier on the door and found that it was portrayed quite complicatedly. It was formed by 5 different types of energies distributed equally, but the energy in each section was different, making it form a magical barrier. Shi couldn't understand this barrier, so he couldn't resolve it. At the same time, he wasn't sure if he could break it with force. Even if he could do that, he didn't dare to take risks. Because once he did that, the master who made this barrier would know about it via his soul consciousness immediately. If he couldn't get in, he wouldn't spend more time thinking about how to beat this barrier. Shi contemplated in front of this door for a while and then released a beam of his soul consciousness with space power, piercing through the door. Shi soul consciousness had been added with space power, so he didn't need to worry about being blocked by the barrier. Shortly, his wisps of soul consciousness got to the cabin through the barrier on the door. However, it was strange that his soul consciousness couldn't see the interior of the cabin. He could only feel it was a gray and gloomy area, having the flow of energy of some living being. That living being found him shortly, as a thought was sent to his soul consciousness. "Who are you?" Shi contemplated for a while and then explained. "I'm one of the human cauldrons in this deck. They imprisoned me to produce the god-developing pellets for the owner of the steamship, Bi Rou. I'm from a low-level continent. I have no idea about outer space. I don't know the owner of this ship either. I have no clue about this world." Medicinal cauldrons, the others thought was paused for a long while before talking again. "As you can still walk around, your condition isn't bad at all. Seems you still can survive for a while." Shi forced a smile, not knowing how to continue this topic. "What realm are you at?" the other asked since he saw Shi staying silent. "Second sky of True God Realm," Shi answered honestly. "Only the second sky of True God Realm? Sigh, too low." The other seemed to be disappointed. "At this realm, you have no hope to escape. If they want to kill you, it will be as easy as flipping one's hand. You will have no chance to escape your human medicinal cauldron state." Shi felt bitter. "How about you? Are you a human cauldron too? Why have He isolated you with such a barrier?" Hearing his questions, the other seemed to be enraged. His soul consciousness was also disorderly. Suddenly, he got something. "How could your soul consciousness get here?" "My soul consciousness is a bit unique. The Upanishad I've cultivated isn't the same as normal people. The energy of barriers can't stop me." Shi was still cautious as he didn't talk about his space power. Since he didn't know the other's identity, and after the wild scheme Fergie had set him up with, he was cautious towards everybody. "Although the barrier doesn't stop you, we can only talk," the other calmed down. "You shouldn't stay here. Don't let the others find your operation. They will trouble you." Shi put up guard on hearing the other's advice. He nodded, returning to his small cabin. Despite the space between them, he could still contact with the other. "I want to know the situation of this ship. Which force does it belong to? How strong is this force? You're just a cauldron at the second sky of true God realm. Even if you know about it, what you can do. Do you think you can escape your destiny? We still need to try. Without trying, should we accept our fate? This steamship belongs to the General Commander of the Underworld League. Underworld League in the Raging Flame Star area is the strongest force of the strongest forces. They have so many hotshots and experts are everywhere. Bi Rou's one of the 3 general commanders. He is at the original God realm. He has many King God realm subordinates. Bi Rou's the owner of the steamship and Bi Rou's daughter. The other seemed to be too bored, so he explained to Shiryan in detail. Underworld League in the Raging Flame Star area has more than 100 life stars and many mineral stars. It's a mighty force. People that belong to this force have a diamond-like mark on their foreheads. I think you know this already. Yes, I know. But what are the life stars? You're from a low-level continent indeed. The other disdained him. The stars that have heaven and earth energy moving around, suitable for living beings to live and cultivate, are considered life stars, just like the continent you come from. People can't live on the mineral stars. Well, it isn't suitable for living beings to cultivate and break through. However, the mineral stars have many types of ores and crystals that attract people more than the life stars. Shiryan wanted to ask more, but he suddenly retrieved his soul consciousness, staying quietly in his small cabin. Not long afterward, Allard appeared on the staircase. He bared his teeth, then grinned and waved his hand towards Shiryan. The 100-legged centipede flew out of Shiryan's arm immediately. Allard surveyed his centipede for a while, then his eyes brightened up happily. He laughed contentedly while nodding his head. Not bad, not bad. Your progress is quite fast. Afterward, he took out some god-developing pellets from the centipede. Next, in front of Shiryan, he fed the 100-legged centipede many medicinal ingredients before letting it return to Shiryan's arm. Leaving him 3 new solid pellet bottles, Allard squinted at him. Kid, behave and produce medicines for me. After it's all done, perhaps I won't return you to Nita. I will set you free directly. Allard left with great satisfaction. Shiryan's face was as calm and cold as water, his eyes sharp and chilled. After the man left, he snorted. After Allard had left, he continued to use solid pellet to increase his blood chi and refill the consumed essence chi of his ancient tree. He was quite relaxed though. After each time he consumed the medicinal power of the solid pellets, while the immortal martial spirit was healing his body, he would talk to the man in the other cabin. Through him, Shiryan got more information of the Raging Flame Star area. According to him, the Raging Flame Star area consisted of several hundred life stars and many mineral stars. Different races and living beings were dwelling together there. The Underworld League was an extremely mighty force. It was considered the best of the best forces in the Raging Flame Star area. The Underworld League had strict rules on ranking. Besides the hegemon, it had 3 other general commanders guarding the other places and around 10 League Guard elders. Rumors said that they were all experts with profound realms and extraordinary cultivation base. There was no racial discrimination in the Raging Flame Star area and the Underworld League. Different races could live together. And as long as they were strong enough, they could earn positions and power. Just like the 3 general commanders and the League Guard elders, each of them had their own life stars. Some even had several life stars and mineral stars. They could govern the stars and take all the harvest. Shiryan focused on the life stars. He understood that each life star was like the Grace mainland, which was full of heaven and earth energy, pretty suitable for warriors to live and cultivate. Life stars were classified according to their energy cycle. Just like the ranking of blacksmiths and alchemists, life stars were ranked in the scale of 7. Level 7 was the highest level, and level 1 was the lowest level. They even had someone specialized in measuring the energy of a life star to classify it. Life stars that had come to an end of its energy cycle, like the Grace mainland, according to the ranking of the Raging Flame Star area, were considered the lowest level, as they were about to drain up and be abandoned. Shiryan became curious to know more about the Raging Flame Star area, listening to the other's explanation. He had a beam of hope growing in his heart. He had a dream that he could escape one day and have his own life star. At that time, he could bring his family and friends from the perpetual night forest in the Grace mainland there for a better life. The Raging Flame Star area had some special vehicles that could travel across the meteorite sea without being affected by the brutal energy storms of outer space. If ordinary warriors could stay in those vehicles, they could also escape the storm. This bronze steamship was that sort of a vehicle. Since it had been portrayed with so many mysterious and complicated formations, it could resist the furious energy storm. If he could have a life star and a vehicle like this one, he could pick up his family and friends in the perpetual night forest. With this thought, Shi Yan had found an exit for people in the Grace mainland through his trip to the foreign land. However, the premise was that he had to escape the Raging Flame Star area. On some day later on, when he had just finished refilling his blood chi using the solid pellet, and while he was about to contact the other, he felt a small tremor come from under his feet. After that, the ship stopped moving. Shi Yan's soul consciousness went through the barrier to the cabin of the other. The other sent his thought to Shi Yan first. "Help me with this." Shi Yan was surprised. He pondered for a while and then probed, "What?" "We're supposed to arrive at the drifting gold sand area. That's why the ship stops. Later on, when you have a chance, help me collect some drifting gold sand. It's useful to me." "Drifting gold sand?" Shi Yan frowned, using his soul consciousness to ask the other. "I don't get it. What kind of sand is it? What's it good for?" "It's the fine gold sand. We have so much out there. This fine sand has a strong erosive ability. Perhaps it could melt the barrier confining me. You should be careful. Don't let the others realize your plan. If I can get out of here, you'll receive good things for sure." "I can try, but I'm not sure." He paused and then continued. "Is it dangerous to collect the drifting gold sand? Can you expose yourself in outer space?" "Yes." "So, it's not dangerous. Remember, don't let anybody know about it. Otherwise, both of us will be in big trouble." "Sure." After they had finished, Shi Yan walked out of his cabin, putting on a faint visage and then climbing the staircase to reach the main deck. Although he looked natural, he was discreetly cautious. Chapter 716. Big Business Deal. Chapter 716. Big Business Deal. Many warriors were standing on the main deck of the giant bronze steamship. Allard and Bi Rou were also there, walking back and forth casually. Big rocks floated outside the ship, glistening with a glorious golden hue. Bizarre fine sand flowed from those golden rocks. Following the wind, grains of this kind of fine gold sand scattered everywhere. At first glance, Shi Yan felt like he was floating in a fine gold sand sea. Those fine gold grains sparkled with a dazzling gold hue while floating slowly here and there. From a further distance, fulgent stars shone radiantly like numerous diamonds inlaid in the universe, giving him a calm and peaceful feeling. Shi Yan could see some people standing on the gold rocks and hitting them. Those people had different realms, but the lowest realm was the Sky Realm. Most of them had the Spirit Realm or True God Realm cultivation base. Also, Shi Yan saw a King God Realm expert who had a diamond-shaped mark on his forehead. He seemed to be supervising the others as he was screaming continually. Watching for a while, Shi Yan knew that this drifting gold sand area was another mining area of the Underworld League. Those warriors with the relatively low realms were the miners, collecting drifting gold sand for the League. This mining area surely belonged to Bai Tian, one of the general commanders of the Underworld League. As soon as Bi Rou appeared, the King God Realm warrior came and greeted her. Then, he reported her something, showing her a logbook. Bi Rou checked it for a while, then nodded and waved her hand. Next, that King God Realm expert pitched his voice high like thunder, asking the miners to bring the drifting gold sand they had collected. They brought over the sand contained in a conical barrow. The miners then pushed the conical barrows, which were full of gold sand, towards the fourth deck of the big steamship. Soon, Allard saw Shi Yan. He frowned, walking towards him with an unhappy countenance. "Why are you up here? It's too boring down there." "I'm here to take some fresh air and widen my knowledge." Shi Yan wore an indifferent face, watching here and there deliberately. "Does it affect your work?" Allard snorted, gazing at him. Seeing him doing nothing strange, he continued, "Just watch. Do not do anything. Otherwise, harumph." Shuryen acted naturally. He nodded but didn't answer, just watching the drifting gold sand around, thinking about how to collect it. After Bi Rou had arranged everything, she peeked at him from a distance. Then, it seemed she got interested in him, walking towards him directly. When she stood firmly in front of him, she spoke up with an arrogant face. "You said that you're from a low-grade continent. What's it called?" The Grace mainland, Shuryen contemplated for a while and then replied honestly. "The Grace mainland?" A skeptical gleam flashed in Bi Rou's pupils. Searching in her head for a while, she then shook her head, talking faintly. "Never heard of it before. How could you get to the meteorite sea?" "Using a bone formation made of the skeletons of many beasts. After we got here, the energy of those bones had been consumed completely. They all turned into ashes and scattered." Shuryen's face was natural. He didn't conceal anything, because he also wanted to know the location of the Grace mainland, and hoped that he could return someday to pick up his family and friends. "Your innate endowment isn't bad. You could break through to the second sky of True God realm while being the medicinal cauldron. It has proven your competence." Bi Rou lifted her head, revealing her snow-white neck while frowning her dark brows. "You don't need to blame heaven or earth. Everybody who comes from the low-level continents has to go through strenuous training. Many people become slaves, miners, or medicinal cauldrons not long after they get here. If their fortune isn't good, they will be killed shortly. If you can help me produce more god-developing pellets, I agree not to send you back to the 6th Herbal Star." Shuryen sneered in his heart. He had no trust in people in the outer space. However, his words were different. "Thank you. I, of course, will do my best." "Yeah, just arrange things for yourself. Be honest, and I won't mistreat you," Bi Rou nodded. "If you're lucky enough, I'll introduce you to join the Underworld League. At that time, you will get rid of being the medicinal cauldron, and you can step on the Raging Flame Star area." Shuryen cracked a smile but didn't answer. Bi Rou didn't continue this topic. She called for Allard and the 3 King God realm experts on the steamship to arrange stuff for the next journey. Shuryen watched everything carefully. Then, when they didn't notice, he took the chance and returned to the exit door leading to the staircase, waiting there. A miner pushed the conical barrow passing by him. Looking at the drifting gold sand in the barrow, a gleam of light sparkled in his eyes. The drifting gold sand was contained in the 4th deck of the ship, right above his cabin. That deck seemed to be a massive container for storing the ores or other mineral goods they'd been collecting along the way. Then, they would be transported to the life star of Bi Rou's father. He quietly descended the staircase, leaning against the wall to make way for the miners pushing the drifting gold sand to the 4th deck. 3 King God realm warriors were guarding the door to that warehouse. Their sharp eyes opened wide, scrutinizing everybody to prevent them from stealing the drifting gold sand. Shuryen stayed aside and observed for a while. He touched his forehead, and a flame ignited on the soul altar. The 9 Serenity's soul-devouring flame appeared, with its aura concealed as it discreetly hid behind a barrow. In Shuryen's Heaven Flame's altar, the 9 Serenity's soul-devouring flame was the most cunning one. It was good at stealthy concealing, and its unique energy waves could prevent the others from detecting it. Shortly, the 9 Serenity's soul-devouring flame got back to him, still hiding its entity, disappearing into his sleeve. A handful of drifting gold sand stayed in his sleeve, and no one detected this operation. His face was still calm, mounting down the staircase neither slowly nor fast, towards the lowest deck of the ship. The other 3 King God realm experts guarding the 4th deck scanned their eyes on him thoroughly, but found nothing strange. Once Shuryen disappeared into the staircase leading to the lowest deck, they retrieved their scrutinizing look. Shuryen got into his cabin and closed the door. He didn't hurry to contact the other. First, he stashed most of the drifting gold sand into his storage ring, leaving just a pinch of sand in his palm. The fine gold sand murmured like water. This sand had strong erosive power, but it didn't aim at the flesh and blood. Nothing strange happened to his palm. However, as soon as he put some grains on the corner of the room, It suddenly emitted a gray smoke as if it were eroded. Shi Yan changed his face as he found that the characteristics of the sand were quite strange. Except for flesh and blood, all other kinds of matter would be eroded. Shi Yan didn't know what kind of treasures needed drifting gold sand to be fabricated. He pondered for a while and then contacted the other, sending a message. I got it. Did you get caught? No. Good. When the ship departs again, you should rub the drifting gold sand on the barrier on the door of my cabin. What do I get for that? If I can get out of here, you can escape the ship, and you don't need to be a human cauldron anymore. I'm not hurried. I don't want to leave for now. Although that medicinal animal's taking my blood chi constantly, it doesn't affect me much. It's not the best offer you've given me. You should think carefully to see if you have anything worth me risking my life to help you. If I help you and the others figure it out, I will be put in misery. If the benefits aren't big enough, I won't take such risks. Why are you so strange? You want to be a human cauldron? Didn't you count how many human cauldrons have died on this deck? Of course, I know. Well, they aren't me. They will die, but I won't. Anyhow, if they find out that I helped you, I would surely die then. And when you get out of your cabin, are you sure you can escape this ship? What's your realm? I have no clue about you. I don't want to step into your trap. After the experience he gained from Fergie, Shi Yan always put up guard against everybody. He would never listen to only one side and would never act rashly. What do you want? What can you offer me? The other kept silent for a while. Shi Yan wasn't hurried to send another message, giving the other time to consider. I can see you're interested in the life stars. After we're done with this, I'll give you a rank 2 life stars payment. What do you think? The other pondered for a long while and then sent him his thought eventually. Shi Yan's eyes brightened. You have got life stars? How could you have life stars? Harumph. I'm Prince Du Feng of the Dark Firmament Divine Nation. What's strange if I have my life stars given by my father? Prince? You're a prince? Why are you captured and imprisoned here? The other quieted down. From the situation of the Raging Flame Star area the other had told him, Shi Yan knew the Dark Firmament Divine Nation was like the Underworld League. It was an extremely mighty force in this star area. The Dark Firmament Divine Nation had many life stars and mineral stars. Many strong experts had exploited the old royal regime to stand firmly on the Raging Flame Star area. The king of the Dark Firmament Divine Nation was one of the most powerful experts of the Raging Flame Star area. He was extremely dangerous for sure. The temptation of a life star was tremendous to Shi Yan. If he could have a life star of his own, he could bring all of his family and friends here and solve the most difficult problem of the Grace mainland, the shortage of energy. Thus, he pondered for a while and then sent the message again. How can I believe you? How could Du Feng betray his own words? The other seemed to be enraged. It's just a rank 2 life star. You think I can't give it to you? Why do I need to deceive you? If you change your mind, I would have nothing I could do. How about you use your ancestor's name to pledge? Although it's not so strong, it's better than nothing. I have to take big risks for you. You should make a pledge to ease my mind. The other got enraged badly. You're just a cauldron at the true god realm. You dare to force me using my ancestor's name to pledge? If you can't make a solemn promise, we have nothing to continue. You can wait there. I'm not hurried at all. All right, you're good. The asterisk starred. The other calmed down his rage. He resentfully used the name of the ancestor of his Dark Firmament Divine Nation to make a vow, saying that when he could escape this place, he would give Shi Yan a rank 2 life star as his payment. Deal. Shi Yan thought for a while. After he could confirm that the other's wording had nothing wrong, he sent the other his approval. Chapter 717, The God Domain. Chapter 717, The God Domain. Shi Yan applied the drifting gold sand equally on the corners of Du Feng's door. Seeing the drifting gold sand eroding the barrier little by little, yet not causing any big commotion, Shi Yan could finally ease his mind. In the next period of time, he still used the solid pellet to recover his power and train his body. Shi Yan didn't notice how fast time had passed. After an unknown period of time, Shi suddenly detected Du Feng's soul consciousness proactively come to him from his cabin. Shi was startled. He crept to Du Feng's cabin and found that the drifting gold sand had eroded a small corner of the barrier. Du Feng's soul consciousness had sneaked out through that tiny corner. You can get out already? Shi was struck. All right, what's your realm? Even if you can get rid of the barrier, will you be able to leave? At this moment, I can't. Anyway, since the barrier is torn, I can send messages to you. Not long afterward, people from my dark firmament divine nation will come for me. Du Feng grinned fiendishly. Wait until the hotshots of the dark firmament divine nation come. I will make that Bi**tch wish to die rather than to live. Bi Rou. Who else then? Why have they captured you? Doesn't matter to you. Du Feng was so embarrassed that he got angry. You don't need to poke your nose in other things. What I've promised you, I will do. Shi nodded. He didn't continue the topic but returned to his cabin. Not long after that, Allard came down there another time to harvest the god-developing pellets from the 100-legged centipede. He put more materials into the insect, then gave Shi 5 more bottles of the solid pellet to help him recover his body. Shi was happy and relatively free. He felt that it wasn't too harsh to live here. Every day, he used the solid pellets to restore his essence chi and wet his body, which would help him improve his powers. Eventually, Shi found that his realm had been advanced greatly. Such life where he didn't need to worry about the outer world and just focus on his cultivation was quite useful to his martial path. Fergie hadn't come down here anymore. Since Shi had scolded her, she got it and didn't visit him to be scolded again. However, Bi Rou would come to check him from time to time as if she were interested in him. She was curious that he had never been exhausted as a human medicinal cauldron. Quite the contrary, he had been progressing well day by day. Shi had no good feelings for this lady. Every time he talked to her, he just wanted to finish it quickly. Anything he could conceal about himself, he had tried his best to hide it all. If he couldn't hide, he would try to lie to make the lady confused. Today, he stayed on the lowest deck of the steamship and took in 3 solid pellets at the same time. His spirit, soul, and chi had gained a lot of benefits from this kind of pellets. Shi was glad to feel the wild, mighty power in his body. Right at this minute, the giant bronze steamship suddenly had a grumbling explosion, as if a heavy object had just hit the ship. It trembled hard when an energy fluctuation as heavy as a collapsing mountain burst off on the deck of the ship. It woke Shi up with a pale face. Du Feng immediately sent him a surprising message. My men are here. Haha. I want to peel off the face of that Bi**tch this time. Shi was struck. He understood that he finally had a chance to overturn his situation. He didn't dare to crane his head out of the cabin, just waiting in silence at his spot. The ship trembled harder. Tremendous energy attack bloomed from the upper decks. Such earth-shaking energy movement seemed to be strong enough to destroy an entire planet. It was so strong that it made Shi soul tremble uneasily. Boom! A massive impact transmitted from the deck under his feet. This bronze steamship seemed to be pierced through as the intense gust of outer space started to flood in, wrecking many small cabins. Many human cauldrons were smashed under such formidable pressure. Shi discolored a little bit. He understood that staying on the deck wasn't a wise move. But, since he didn't know the direction of the other party's attacks, if they hit his area, he wouldn't have a chance to dodge. Perhaps, he would be killed instantly. Shi hesitated for a while. Then, he walked out of the cabin and climbed the staircase to reach the main deck of this massive bronze steamship. Du Feng didn't make any big commotion in his small room. He was still waiting. Shi got to the main deck with a dark face, but his eyes were sparkling. The outer space was dark and frosty. Stars twinkled from far away, while energy storms were wreaking havoc around the ship. Bi Rou, Allard, and the other 3 King God Realm experts were fighting the enemies, which were probably the armed force of the Dark Firmament Divine Nation. They were wearing orange fighting clothes and gears, holding different sharp weapons in their hands. Those weapons were huge, around 3 or 4 meters long, exuding a brutal lethality. Those people didn't come from the same race, but they wore the same uniform. The energy waves rippled from them were formidable. This group had 5 King God Realm warriors. Those 5 experts were enough to stop Bi Rou, Allard, and the 3 King God Realm warriors of their side. Powers from their weapons were urged, which were the most profound power, creating the God domain. They were like the most furious energy storms, destroying everything on their way. Only the King God Realm warrior, who had the God body and a certain control over the power Upanishads, could create the God domain. Each God domain was different, but they were all sharp and lethal. One of them had the God domain of metal class, which was almost unbreakable. Wherever the God domain passed by, the rigid deck of the ship exploded, as if many sharp sabers had slashed on it. Such tyrannical energy movement had scared Shi seriously. He understood that if the God domain covered him, even his abnormal sturdy body wouldn't be able to stand a blow. Allard was covered inside the God domain. He had to use pellets continually to supplement the consumed energy. However, he couldn't endure for long. His body sparked like a block of metal being polished. He looked totally distressed. The others had different classes of God domains due to different power they had perceived. Their domains also had different effects. It seemed like Bi Rou was using water techniques. After she released her God domain, it was like she was covered by an immense, shoreless ocean. Whenever the others' attacks reached her, they would be neutralized by the water power. After getting through many layers, all attacks were weakened to the point they could do no harm to her. While they were engaging in a furious battle, no one had paid attention to Shi, who had just got out of the deck. Shi had time to observe the situation. On this massive bronze steamship, there were many warriors under Bi Rou's order. Around 500 warriors with low realms were scared off by the God domains. They had tried to stay as far away from the God domains as possible. Fergie was also there. She hid in the back area of the deck to watch the things happening on the main deck. Seeing the God domain about to reach this area, she proactively moved aside to get rid of its coverage. Seeing Shi, a strange gleam appeared in her eyes, but she didn't persist her glance on Shi as she had to change her location constantly. Hovering not far away from the big bronze steamship was a dazzling amethyst war chariot, around 5 meters wide and 10 meters long. It seemed to be cut and fabricated from a whole block of pure amethyst. In this dark space, it radiated gloriously with a blazing halo. There was a crown image portrayed on the top of the amethyst war chariot. Sitting leisurely under the crown was a charming and elegant figure. She was covered in layers of purple light that made it hard to see her real appearance. She seemed to not pay any attention to the battle over there. Shi could see that she was eating some kind of fruits relaxedly. Shi could notice that Fergie had always glued her eyes on the amethyst war chariot. Her face changed continually with deep fear. Even though Bi Rou and Allard were engaging in a fierce fight, they had to keep an eye on that purple chariot. Fright sparkled in their eyes as if they knew the woman sitting there was really dangerous. "My good brother, you want to hide away until when, eh? Get your A**s out, quick." A lazy voice that sounded like it came from heaven arose melodiously from the amethyst war chariot. It seemed to be able to run straight to human souls and enchant them. Her voice made people's souls sink into its beautiful melody and never want to get out. A quick enchantment appeared in Shiyan's eyes. But he recovered fast, changing his face. That woman had a voice that could pierce through people's soul naturally and charmingly. It was like the nightmare that could run directly to the deepest level of people's hearts, making them powerlessly lazy and preventing them from raising their fighting will. This was a tremendous power indeed. Many warriors at the spirit realm and true god realm on the steamship under Bi Rou's command were bewildered on hearing that voice. They looked like they were struck by the body-fixing spell. Their faces were dull and dreamy, as if they were flying happily in their best dreams. Expressions of lust appeared on their faces as well. No one had seen her yet, but her seductive voice was enough to mess their minds. Shi acclaimed her inside his head while circulating the power of the ice-cold flame, using its icy aura to relax his sea of consciousness and prevent the other from snatching his mind. Dufeng's cold voice eventually arose from the cabin. "Sis, why are you here?" "Well, if I didn't come here, did you want us to wait until they got you to the Underworld League and ask for several life stars and mineral stars as ransom?" The heavenly voice of the woman arose one more time. Our father said that you will be grounded for 10 years this time. You always make troubles. Sai, you tell me, till when would our father no longer need to worry about you anymore? A young, handsome man with a cold, gloomy face walked out of the cabin. His clothes were full of dust. Pungent odor rose from him from time to time. He was Prince Dufeng. How could he get out? Bi Rou paled. She shifted her look to Allard. Didn't you say that the barrier has no flaws? Allard was still fighting with the others. Hearing her, he paled, screaming continually. I don't know. Theoretically, he should have never escaped. Wahaha. It used to be true. Your barrier can prevent the soul consciousness and seal all ways of communication. If I relied only on my power, I couldn't send my whereabouts to my men. Dufeng smiled darkly. Suddenly, he rose his voice. Friend, where are you? We have always used the soul consciousness to talk, but have never met before. I don't know what you look like, mate. Dufeng's look raked through those people. An inexplicable smile hung on the corner of his mouth. Bi Rou and Allard darkened their faces on hearing him. Even the woman sitting in the amethyst war chariot got startled. Later on, she laughed cheerily. Turns out you have got a partner. I say, you moron, how could you send the message while being confined? Who is so stupid that he helped my B***starred brother? Actually, I don't know whether to say thank or scold you for helping him. I don't want him to get out, you know? Haha. While the woman was talking, her amethyst war chariot slowly flew and harbored next to the giant bronze steamship. A purple figure floated up and then descended on the main deck amidst the scrutinizing look of so many people. Chapter 718, Princess Zi Yao. Chapter 718, Princess Zi Yao. The woman was wearing purple clothes made of some unknown material, which was sparkling like stars in the sky. In this dark starry space, she was as gorgeous as the most beautiful purple star of the universe, dazzlingly delightful. As soon as she appeared, all the warriors, no matter they were under Bi Rou, or the 5 King God Realm warriors on her side, revealed their enchanted faces. Her kind of beauty was so hard to be described with words. Her body and appearance were so perfect that no one could find even a tiny flaw. She looked like a masterpiece of fine art created by God after spending countless hours. Each feature of hers could make people want to dream about it. No one could resist but immerse passionately in her beauty. She had a pair of purple eyes, which looked like 2 glorious pieces of amethyst, which were always full of a magical purple light. Her pretty eyes were so charming that it could entice men's souls, making them glue their eyes on her. Even Serene, a man who had almost seen all kinds of beauties in this world, got struck at first glance. He couldn't shift his look from her, as if he had entered a wonderful dream where she was the most beautiful sight that kept people from waking up. In the Grace mainland, Serene had seen many outstanding women, but none of them could be as flawless as this woman. She was truly a miracle. Princess Zi Yao, the 5 King God Realm experts who were attacking Bi Rou, stopped their attack and bowed to greet the woman respectably. The woman beamed a gentle smile that was naturally beautiful like a newborn star, and nothing could compare to her. This smile could melt even the toughest heart. She nodded, raking her look on the ground. Men under her look all tried to stand upright and chin up, trying to earn her favor. Her look scanned through many people and eventually fell on Serene. Serene quietly circulated the ice-cold flame. Extremely cold energy started to move around his body, which reluctantly helped him resist the natural seduction of that woman. He didn't show his lust towards her and kept a calm face. However, his eyes still sparkled with a strange light. Princess Zi Yao of the Dark Firmament Divine Nation had a gleam of surprise in her beautiful amethyst-like eyes. She was amazed on seeing Serene's calm expression, so she wanted to look at him a little bit more. Serene didn't know why he was scared on receiving her favor. He blamed himself for being rude under the look of a beauty. Later on, he felt that the other had a mighty enchanting power, that as long as he was a male, he couldn't keep his eyes off her. Sis, does father really want to ground me for 10 years? Dufeng put on a miserable countenance. Didn't you beg him to save me? Beg him. Princess Zi Yao curled her lips interestedly. I did. Du Feng was struck, cracking a smile. I know you love me, sis. Oh, yeah. Princess Zi Yao burst out laughing. I've begged father to ground you for 50 years. But father loves you, moron. He didn't agree with me. He failed me, though. Sigh. Du Feng's countenance froze. His smile became more miserable. However, he didn't dare to mess up with his sister, even though his heart was filled with resentment. Leave this ship here, Bi Rou. You guys should leave. The ores and natural resources on the ship are to compensate for the fact that you've confined my brother. Princess Zi Yao didn't care about Yan, turning to Bi Rou's team and then continued, Do you have any idea? Bi Rou's face became cold. Her eyes were filled with rage. Du Feng harassed me first. What's wrong if I captured him? *TCH, being the wife of Prince Du Feng is a humiliation to you? You don't know how many women have cried to roll into my arms. I favored you, but you didn't appreciate me. Du Feng shouted harshly. Bi Rou's face darkened, as her beautiful eyes sparkled coldly. If you weren't a prince, I would have killed you already. You want to marry me? In your dreams. Du Feng still wanted to say something, but Princess Zi Yao had waved her hand to stop him. She laughed cheerily at Bi Rou. It's true. My brother doesn't deserve you. People in the Raging Flame Star area all know his bad habits. But you've killed my people. Big mistakes. I'm easy to talk to, so I won't capture you and ask your father to give a ransom for you to reduce the troubles. However, you have to leave this ship. Well, after you get home and cry in front of your father, we will calculate our debts then. Miss Bi Rou. Allard reminded her gently as his eyes sparkled with a strange light. Apparently, the force they had here wasn't a match of Zi Yao's team. Her 5 King God Realm warriors were enough to oppress all of them. At the same time, Princess Zi Yao's realm and bearings were well known around the Raging Flame Star area. Allard knew that they were in the disadvantaged situation, so he had to wake Bi Rou up. The other 3 King God Realm warriors on Bi Rou's side also signaled her to be patient. Bi Rou hesitated for a while and then agreed begrudgingly. She spoke up coldly. You won this time. However, it won't be easy to solve this grudge. Haha, if you want to play, I'll accompany you. Princess Zi Yao burst out laughing, nodding her head elegantly. Go home and ask your brother why he got hurt. Little girl, don't appreciate yourself too highly. Although your father's the general commander of the Underworld League, he's just a commander, not the hegemon. We, the Dark Firmament Divine Nation, aren't afraid of you guys. Let him come find us. After she said that, Bi Rou and Allard discolored, their faces darkening immediately. Bi Rou's big brother got home with severe wounds, from which he had to use a lot of Bai Tian's pellets and medicines to recover. That's why Bi Rou had to find another way, meeting Nita to ask for Yan to produce the god-developing pellet. This kind of pellet would ensure her breakthrough, making it flawless. When her big brother came home, he kept his mouth shut, talking nothing about his wounds. He didn't reveal who had hurt him. Until now, Bi Rou didn't know who did that to him. Today, as she heard Princess Zi Yao say that, Bi Rou changed her face instantly. Finally, she knew who had attacked her brother. She got tense as she was scared. As the other had dared to hurt her brother, apparently, she wasn't afraid of Bai Tian. If Bi Rou wanted to linger here, she would earn nothing good. She suddenly recalled the words people had used to assess Princess Zi Yao, beautiful like a fairy, evil as a scorpion. A cold feeling arose from the bottom of Bi Rou's heart. She stared at Zi Yao for a while and then nodded with an anxious visage. She turned to Allard standing next to her. We'll go. Leave this ship here. She paused for a while, as if she suddenly recalled something, pointing at Yan. He'll come with us. I don't need the other medicinal cauldrons. During this period, Yan alone had produced 20 god-developing pellets. As Bi Rou could see the marvelous potential of his body, she remembered Yan at this critical moment. I won't go. See you later. Yan was always quiet, standing in a corner of the ship, and nobody had noticed him. He cracked a smile. Don't worry. I will remember you guys. When I have the chance, I will pay back your favor today. Du Feng was stooping his head in distress. Hearing his voice, he was struck, laughing contentedly. Hey, buddy. You spoke finally. People's eyes instantly fell on Shiryan. At this moment, they then understood who Du Feng's partner in crime was. It's you. Allard clenched his jaw, his face grimaced. It's you. Kid, you don't want to live, right? I should have killed you earlier. Bi Rou's face became as cold as ice. Her sharp eyes scanned through Shiryan like a cold saber as she was gritting her teeth. Fergie was standing not far from them. She changed her countenance immediately as she could finally recognize how touch and dangerous Shiryan was. A beam of fear crossed her beautiful eyes as she was discreetly worried. She understood how dangerous and patient Shiryan was more than anybody else. If Shiryan could escape this time, his realm would advance tremendously in the future. A man who could still break through the next realm while being a human medicinal cauldron was truly the most dangerous one. Furthermore, Fergie knew that Shiryan was pretty young, and his potential seemed to be endless. She suddenly felt regret. She regretted that she shouldn't ambush Shiryan. Today, as he had a new opportunity, he would never spare her life once he got stronger. Not bad. Not bad. I was wondering why you could be so calm. Princess Zi Yao also beamed a smile. She was curious why Shiryan wasn't enchanted under her look. Hearing Du Feng, she now knew that Shiryan was the one who had broken Du Feng's adversity. Thus, she became more curious, scanning her purple eyes on him with great interest. Under her scrutinizing look, Shiryan was indifferent, pointing at Fergie while his eyes were on Du Feng. I want to kill her, and I don't want anybody to interfere. Can you help me with this? Du Feng was surprised. He stood in a daze, unable to react. Fergie's face changed dramatically. Fear and angst flashed in her eyes. An ice-cold feeling arose from the bottom of her heart. She thought it would end here, and Shiryan would come to find her for revenge after he reached the higher realm. However, Shiryan's revenge came too fast. He wanted to kill her before she had time to even leave. In her panic, Fergie felt even more resentful. She was at the third sky of True God Realm cultivation base and had always stayed in the Raging Flame Star area to cultivate. Whether it was her knowledge or power, it was all extraordinary. A kid from a low-grade continent who had just broken through the second sky of True God Realm wanted to kill her. It was such a humiliation to her. She was so embarrassed she got indignant. Good. I like to watch people fighting and killing. Du Feng hadn't said anything, and yet his sister, Princess Zi Yao, smiled broadly first. Her smile was as beautiful and cheerful as 100 spirits singing and dancing. She said excitedly, kill her. I'm sure no one can disturb you. Haha, little brother, you have the guts. You only have the second sky of True God Realm, but you dare to provoke the higher realm warriors. Good. I like you that way. Go, I'll support you. She swung her jade-like, flawless arm, smiling charmingly. Shiryan's eyes flashed with a gleam of affection, but he was awakened up immediately by the power of the ice-cold flame. Then, he stooped and walked towards Fergie while smiling. Fergie was angry. She calmed down her surging emotion and countered. She had been accumulating power to show Shiryan, the one who didn't know how high the sky was in this place, what the so-called mighty warriors of high-level continents were. Since she wasn't a member of Bi Rou's force and just a passenger taking a ride with them, Bi Rou's team was just standing and watching with unconcerned visages. Actually, they also wanted to see how unusual this strange human medicinal cauldron was. Chapter 719. Break the Chest. Chapter 719. Break the Chest. Fergie's face darkened. Two different energies started to expand from her body, creating two distinctive poles with a magnetic field in between, which was the magical mediatory area where the two energies pulled and pushed each other. She was extremely indignant. In front of so many people, Shiryan, a second sky of True God Realm warrior, called her name while saying that he wanted to kill her. It was such a big bloody humiliation to her. She needed Shiryan's blood to wash this shame. Fergie decided to kill Shiryan this time. She would never give him more time to grow. She could see his endless potential. If she let him progress further, he would be a fatal disaster, bringing a great deal of trouble to her. Bi Rou and Allard always felt that Serene had many mysteries. Otherwise, he wouldn't have been able to break through while being a human medicinal cauldron. They didn't know Serene's real competence either. That was why they wanted to use this battle to estimate his power in order to have a proper counterplan. Although Prince Du Feng wanted to say something to Serene, hearing his sister's words, he put on a dark and cold face while gazing at him. Princess Zi Yao of the Dark Firmament Divine Nation was still nonchalant even though she was busy. Her curled lips cracked a smile that made many people crazy. She was leisurely eating some translucent fruits. There was no worry but excitement in her eyes. Under people's eyeballing, Serene maintained his calm and natural posture, as if he were taking a walk in his backyard garden. He sauntered nonchalantly towards Fergie. After he was about 100 meters away from Fergie, a furious energy wave shot out from his body. Then, different kinds of energies were released quietly, gathering in front of his body and creating a miraculous magnetic field. Gravitational field. Inside that gravitational field, different energies were tangling and exploding all together. They made it seem like the energy storm of outer space, having a tremendously lethal power. The eyes of Bi Rou and Princess Zi Yao glistened. Their faces looked as if they were struck. Bi Rou became serious, as she was a little bit surprised. The gravitational field Serene had released was somehow similar to the god domain of the King God Realm warriors, which had the magical magnetic field combined with a flow of energy that could be compared to the energy storm. This is a special marital technique that had fused different types of powers. Although they were in the Raging Flame star area, the fusing martial techniques that could combine different types of power were extremely rare. However, each of those techniques was brutal and tyrannical enough. A kid from a low-level continent could release such gravitation field to combine different powers into one attack at first try, making Serene look more mysterious in people's eyes. He had caught more of their attention. Cut off. Fergie's face got colder as her beautiful mouth parted, shouting. Two flows of energy generated from her soft body extended outward from her sides. They rumblingly formed a pair of scissors in the void, attempting to cut Serene's body. That pair of scissors was made of two different types of energy. The two power Upanishads had blended with each other, which doubled the power of the scissors. Light dots sizzled in the gap between the two blades of the scissors, caused by the energy particles moving extremely fast. The pair of scissors rumblingly darted towards him. In just a blink, it reached his chest and was about to have him. Riot. Serene was still calm. All of a sudden, he shouted, making his gravitational field more ruthless. All of the energies inside the field tangled together like the chaotic space basin, while countless light spots appeared on his body. Serene stood still in the dazzling nimbus as starlight dots sparkled in his palms. Starlight dots emerged like fireflies and converged on his palms. Instantly, they turned into a massive star cluster. With the enormous star power, it was like a meteor that Serene had managed to catch. It then shot towards the gap between the two blades of the scissors. Boom, boom, boom. Explosions echoed continually from the gap of the scissors while numerous light spots sparked beautifully. Fergie's soft body trembled. A streak of fright appeared in the bottom of her eyes. All of a sudden, her clothes were covered in layers of light, which seemed to supplement her energy. As Serene was still nonchalant, he suddenly stepped forward from the gravitational field. Just like a 1,000-year rock, his body naturally gushed out a brutal energy wave. Inside his acupuncture points, negative energy was generated silently, flowing towards his arms. At the same time, torrentially surging energy from his essence chi ancient tree splashed abruptly. The energy stored in his ancient tree showered just like a sudden flood, while Serene's energy supply rocketed immediately. His two bare hands pushed up to the sky. Strange and magical small seals, like the illusion of mountains, congealed between his eyes, creating the death and life seal and furiously attacking Fergie. The dead intent domain suddenly gushed out. At this moment, his eyes turned ash-gray. No living aura could be found on him, as a deadly and desolate aura arose from his body, covering the entire area. People who were watching the battle discolored in fright. Strange light sparked from their eyes as they were gazing at Serene and the seal on his hands. The death and life seal snatched over at Fergie. Her fairy-like clothes moved without the wind, as layers of rippling energy expanded one after another from her clothes, just like waves of water. She was using this kind of energy to neutralize the death intent domain's soul erosive effects. The wind-tearing sound, which was unpleasant and mournful to the ears, echoed in people's eardrum. Their god's souls were shaken as they started to find the source of that noise. 3 pale bunches of light appeared from the space cracks. Shortly, they appeared behind Fergie's back and stabbed her furiously. These 3 bone thorns were made of bones of a level 10 beast, so they were as sharp as the sharpest spear. Also, they were added with space power and Yan's magical soul consciousness. They flashed and then disappeared. Crack, crack, crack. 3 cracking sounds echoed from Fergie's back. Her tender body shook 3 times. She paled, while the energy protection of her clothes had reduced by dozens of layers. People then had their eyes turned brighter. They shivered in thrill while looking at the 3 bone thorns that had just appeared from nowhere. Fear crossed their eyes. The bone thorns left almost no shadow or figure as they crossed the space. This sort of an instant attack was really fatal, because even the soul consciousness couldn't catch the thorns' movement. Their whereabouts and trajectories were unknown and ever-changing. Such a technique was too dangerous and frightening. Fergie was lucky that her clothes had the powerful defensive ability. Or else, with that attack, she would have been pierced through and died on the spot. 2-pole magnetic storm. Apparently, Fergie got enraged. She screamed, throwing her arms into the air and then pulling. The fierce energy was enhanced by the energy that shot out of her ample bosom, creating areas of chaotic magnetic storms, which could shatter any kind of energy or attack. At the same time, Fergie flipped her hand, grabbing something. A sharp halo flashed and then disappeared. An energy attack like pointy needles swarmed over the 3 bone thorns. Buzzing sounds emitted from the bone thorns as they made a curve in the air. After getting hit, the bone thorns deviated. However, they were still flying behind her back while Yan's soul consciousness attached to the bone thorns was washed away. Yan didn't change his visage. The corner of his mouth was icy cold. At this moment, he didn't retreat, but strengthened his attacks. He stormed over Fergie right away. His petrification martial spirit had been activated for a long time, as a result of which, his entire body had turned golden. Marvelous energy shot out of each muscle of his while his blood boiled and his bones echoed the cracking sounds continually. It seemed Yan wanted to urge all of the energy in his body. Yan's body was immune to the harsh energy storm due to so many days and nights under the intensive training that ordinary people would never be able to endure. During this period, he had used the solid pellets to refill his energy and the immortal martial spirit to quench his body dozens of times, which could be considered a formidably terrifying process. Boom! Yan impacted the 2-pole magnetic storm created by Fergie. Light dots that naked eye could see bloomed like a furious water current, pouring all over his body. Shortly, the body that had been through so many challenges got cracked. Countless fine cuts appeared on his skin and started to bleed. Extreme pain flooded his body, storming into his sea of consciousness. This kind of sharp pain continually tore his body, as if it wanted to rip his bones and flesh off. Strange breaking noise came from his bones. However, he was still struggling, accumulating the negative power while lunging forward. He dashed out of the 2-pole magnetic storm. Fergie looked as pale as a sheet of paper. Fright reflected clearly in her pupils as she was trying to escape. People who were watching the battle were dumbstruck as they couldn't believe in their own eyes. It seemed they had witnessed something against the common rules. Fear flashed across their faces. They had seen the lethal power of the 2-pole magnetic storm. Under such a tremendous energy attack, no need to mention Yan, even a king god realm expert couldn't endure it if he hadn't quenched his body. They asked themselves and found that if they had to jump into the 2-pole magnetic storm, they could hardly escape. Yan had got out of the magnetic storm almost immediately and reappeared 3 meters in front of Fergie. Just like a long, sharp spear, Yan's face was calm, but his eyes were cold while he bumped into Fergie. At the moment Fergie was frightened, Yan condensed the death and life seal once again, rumblingly striking towards her generous bosom. Layers of water waves on her magical clothes disappeared to the last layer shortly. The energy stored in those layers had been drained completely under the attack of the 3 bone thorns and the death and life seal. It couldn't hold its defense to the last moment. Puff! Yan's right arm pierced through Fergie's clothes and then her chest like a sharp spear. People could see his 5 fingers jutting out of her tender back. Crack! His hand stirred one round, smashing all internal organs inside her body. Blood splashed everywhere, staining his body. The color in Fergie's eyes faded away, replaced by despair. Her breath of life diminished. Yan got a lot of blood all over his face and body. He frowned and retracted his right arm, retreating by 1 meter. Under the people's frightened looks, he tore a piece of Fergie's clothes and wiped the blood stains off his face. You're tuning in to the Phoenix Knights YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.